Begin the meeting with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here. Jones. Here. Moore. First item it shows is to consider the agenda for today. By Schulte, support from the board for approval of the agenda as it was posted. Any discussion, comments? Otherwise, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. We have an agenda. Second item is the minutes from our last meeting. Approved by the board. Further comments or discussion? All those in favor? Signify by aye. All those opposed, same sign. Department heads. Next. Mr. Schulte never did anything for me now. Good. I can work for years. Is Craig making you a little bit or
He's the most helpful person out there, you know. You have to be really nice and doing work for us next week for the Grant Foundation. He's wonderful.
Have you changed your
Still early.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait, she just did nice to you.
It's always that honeymoon period.
And ask me.
I know people named Greg. Our person I know.
Yeah.
Look at your face when she said that. That's kind of a blank look.
Put that in the minutes.
They doesn't know everyone's name yet. Oh, you're Craig. Sorry.
She's gonna need you to stay in.
It won't work. You can try.
Please, we all have to take care of it.
Going home, started to drive.
I was gonna say,
Further away more.
Can they move on?
Give her ideas.
Cranking is fun.
Department heads identified for 8:50, so we get Greg the one kicking it off.
January was a pretty good month in my office. I was kind of surprised with the weather, but it was pretty busy, so. Side folks called me last week, and 4 of our vets are going on the May flight to the facility from Melbourne, so.
Good.
It works out good. It just seems like, you know, we don't want all Sibley vets to go or all Ashland vets to go, but it all evens out, so. So those guys all called me right away when they got their letter, so kind of excited for them.
Oh, we had Solutions here last week, installing document locator, so we're still working with that, trying to figure out what everything it does, and, it's different. And we're getting new equipment from DNR, so that'll be something new also to learn, so, printer came yesterday, the rest of it's coming, next week sometime, they don't really say, so.
Good morning. We're busy getting ready for next week's, Community Foundation Grant Awards, February 21st, 5:30, the Melvin American Legion Community Center. Craig's in charge of making sure everything's set up perfectly well for us. Letters went out last week to everybody who applied, so we're going to be awarding 29 different awards totaling $95,000. You're all welcome to attend. I think we have sent letters, but we're hoping for a good turnout. Still doing the rounds. They had a treacherous drive to Ashton last night for the council meeting. They had plowed 60, so that was really fun. Almost got stuck getting back off 60. So Harris tonight. Hopefully the roads will be better. They're just trying to get around still and introduce myself to council. Also was at Sibley last night. Our website is up and running. We've got quite a few employers on there. Also have the ability for it to be a community calendar. I know we looked at doing that, I guess, 5 years ago. I've always been a website person. It takes me 3 seconds to load things, so I'm on the lookout for things going around in the community, and try to figure out an easy way to kind of get that information, looking on websites and newspapers. But it's super easy functionality, and I think it's important to show there's things happening. On that side, I was always looking for good news to share. You know, with Charlie's in Ashton, I mentioned that to the Globe when they interviewed me, and when I knew it was open, they got an article of the next week in the paper. So there's always things we can be doing to get good news out there. I am working on a career day. Mike started this last year working with the city, with Sibley Cheatham schools. Now, Harris Lake Park takes part in O'Brien County. This is a little bit more established. I think Lyon County has had 5 different school districts involved. So at this stage, I'm just working with Sibley Cheatham schools, but got the school committed to the entire sophomore class coming out, which is 70 kids. We'll see how many get on the day. Last year they did it on in-service day, so it was not particularly high number of students gave up their day to drive out, but the intention is to host the students at businesses out all over. I am trying to get commitment from other communities. I do have, you know, CFD's wants to be involved, the hospital, TC Transcontinental, so I'm trying to get a good number, and I'm working with Ashley's Chamber and the city on that, and they've offered to basically support us in trying to do it, because logistically it's a little challenging. The school is trying to get buses out, but trying to figure out getting kids in a building, seated, listening, chatting, maybe moving on to a second within a 45-minute window. We're working through it. NCC is supportive, as is the extension office, some things that we need for that. That's about it. There's not a huge update on the North 40 project. I'm happy to come back later and give you an update if you would like that. I'm still working on the lawyer side of things. That's it.
All right. Just in time to take the next seat.
A bit of an adventure coming into town this morning. So I guess start thing off, Trout Fest was held January 26th. We figured right at 107 participants registered, which was an excellent turnout. I heard from quite a few Ashton residents, they've never seen the parking lot so full, so that was good. We did have donations for that from the Osceola County PF chapter and the Osceola County Sportsman's Club for the grand prize. As of Trout Fest, there had been 13 tagged fish caught, so there was, I guess, you had a 1 in 13 chance of getting the grand prizes, and we actually have had 2 since. We kinda noticed the same thing last time we did it, that Trout Fest gets them over there, and then they like it so much that they just keep coming back, because I think the week after Trout Fest, you drive by and there'd be 6, 7 trucks parked there and people out fishing, so that was good. Let's see here, we got firewood wrapped and ready to go for the camping season in the trailer to be sold. Doing a little equipment maintenance, working on constructing a floating L to add the floating dock on an action, and we'll put a bench on that. Last week, Matt and I were in Coralville for a continuing education conference, and we got to drive back in the blizzard on Thursday. And then, I guess, March 9th, we are going to have Maple Syrup Day out at Willow Creek. So you can kind of learn how to make your own maple syrup. I guess something different, we've never done it before, and it is in cooperation with the ISU Extension Office, so.
I went to Trout Fest, and a good time was had by all, seeing those little kids with the fishing poles, and they were pretty tickled, so that was, I could mention that, really, really nice job.
Thank you, man. Becky?
Just finishing up our big renewal month, December's renewal month, so the end of January, we finished up with that, usually for the farmers with their trucks, trailers, and all that, so that's getting down to the end. We are starting to collect taxes already, since they are due March 1st, but have the whole month of March to pay them, so those are slowly coming in again, so the next couple of weeks will be busy with taxes, I'm sure. Again, Deb said the document locator, we were a part of that too, so our imaging system did change a little bit, but we're getting used to how it runs, but seems to be going pretty smooth.
Secondary road department, gotten a lot of snow over the last couple of weeks or so, and so it's taking up a lot of our time. Actually, January was an interesting month because it was kind of abnormal. We had kind of a warm spell there for a while too, and we actually got a lot of brush cutting done. You know, we're down in the ditches and all over the county trying to clean up brush and stuff. So we got a lot of caught up actually there. Probably one of the better years we had at that for a while, since I've been here anyways. And you know, we've been working on equipment, you know, planning on other winter projects as well, and maintaining signs, things like that. We also have a couple people getting certified for our big asphalt project so that they can do inspection on it, because this is something we haven't really done before, the scope and size of that type of project. You know, obviously those 2 bridges, we finished those jobs up there by Lake Bella, and in the spring they'll come in and we'll do some final seeding and things like that. And the gravel road will need a little higher maintenance that first year because of all the work that was done and all that excavation work. You know, we have this big paving job that's going to be let literally 1 week from today. So I'll have numbers, you know, later part of next week. I'll kind of know what the bid results are from the DOT. And so my goal would then be at that following board meeting on the 26th to probably approve that if I have everything back from the DOT, and start talking to the contractor then once the contracts are agreed to. So there's a lot of coordination to do on that effort for that project. FEMA is a big aspect. It's going to be a big aspect for a while. But the good news is it could really be a huge benefit to this county in the end if the funding kind of comes through. So we also, you know, I haven't heard back yet from the DOT whether this bridge over by the city dump qualifies yet, but I'm hopeful that that bridge will actually qualify for replacement, and we'll get some additional funding just for that bridge. So that's kind of that's on the program coming up that I'll be going over with you, I think, in the spring when we sign off on that. But I'm kind of waiting to hear back from the DOT on that. Tyler Avenue, obviously the grading job is going to finish up in the spring. First thing is the plan there. The paving portion, I'm still waiting on some stuff from Schlofeld, but we're working through that this week to get some final plans finalized and also the DOT for review. Right now, the way it's looking to me is I'd like to plan on the 26th for having him on the agenda, Wayne Schlofeld, and approving those plans, and then setting a bid letting date. Right now, I'm thinking we'll do it right after the DOT's letting, which is that 3rd Tuesday in March. So I think that at the end of that week, that Thursday or Friday, I think is when we should issue our letting, and I think that will ensure us some of the better pricing too. We wait until after that big letting, because that's when a lot of times, like cement prices and all these things are kind of established, and they can drop down too, so. Also finalizing all of our road maintenance that we're gonna be doing this spring. We have about 70 miles of seal coating that I'm planning out, so, that's another thing we're working on right now, so.
I think in November, December, our meetings, we talked about that 2080 with Ocheyedan. Have you ever got that done?
I've been in contact with them. My plan was actually right now, this last month, to actually be working through that with them, back when I was originally talking to them in the summer. Obviously, some things came up that kind of pushed that back a little bit. Big picture, I've been taking care of Ocheyedan, like, from the spirit of it, regardless. Like, we did a seal coat job through their main street. We're planning on doing a big overlay project. Yes, I am planning on doing that. There's a bigger picture, though, with all that, because Ocheyedan isn't the only community that's affected by that same situation, and there's two issues going on. For the last over a decade, there's a lot of roads in this county that should be going before the Farm to Market Review Board to try to pull in and become a farm to market route, and my goal is to clean that up in 2019. It's been going on for a long time. It goes way back, like old Highway 60, that really should be a farm to market route. It never was brought in. So it's not just Ocheyedan, it's Ocheyedan, it's Sibley, it's also Ashton. Also, I want to be thoughtful and careful, because if we make certain decisions or put something down on paper that isn't thoughtful, it could come back to bite us a year from now, depending on how that goes. So yes, we will have an agreement. Regardless of an agreement, I'm still gonna take care of them like I always have, and and fulfill what we've already talked about in regards to.
It'd still be better to have something.
Absolutely, and the same thing with Ashton, the same thing with these other communities too. It's not just one; there's other issues out there. And so no, the plan there is to tackle it as a project and deal with cleaning up a whole bunch of stuff countywide. And being what's good for the goose is good for the gander, not treating one differently from another, so that we can be consistent.
How is the state's written? Don't they have a 2080 that you could follow?
Exactly, and I have a copy of an example of what they have between the city of Ocheyedan and themselves too.
Okay.
And I actually called up some other counties too regarding this last week.
Okay.
So yes, it's in process, and I wish it would be done. On the flip side, the real bigger issues facing the county, and even what's going to benefit Ocheyedan the most, is like this project being successful and like that overlay happening. I mean, these are the real things that are going to really matter.
You're not going to do that until Tyler's open, are you?
No, the goal is to actually, the goal is to get that route open so that we can, it could overlap. If it does, it's going to be a relatively quick project though. The area that'll be of more key concern is on the north end, right there in access to Railroad Street, and that's the area we'll have to be thoughtful about, depending on where Tyler Avenue is.
I was going to say, I'd like to see Tyler done before you do Main Street.
Yep.
Boy, that'd be a mess.
There is likely going to be a hassle next year, and I'll tell you why, because we are doing a lot of paving. Now, on the flip side, we have to keep a north-south road open. Right now, the best route to keep open is M18, from Highway 9 and Highway 18. That's the best route to maintain as the detour route during construction. So L58 is scheduled for going from the mound south. That's scheduled for paving, as well as that half-mile stretch from the mound to the Ocheyedan turnout, and as well as the good thing about going through town there, it's going to happen relatively quick. They'll build that, and then people can use it, so it's like done. When they come in and overlay that, it's like a day. I mean, it's like going to happen really quick. It's not like it's going to be for weeks. They can't use the route or anything like that. It won't be like that. It'll be very short duration, the impact. Because when you're doing a hot mix asphalt overlay, it's quick.
But even for that day,
There is going to be.
You're going to shut the elevator down for a day.
I've actually been in discussion with Rob Jacobs a little bit about this earlier. You know, that, I know there's gonna be something, he said that he can work with us, we can schedule this. It will take communication, and it will take scheduling, and it is written in the plans that way too, we're gonna have to coordinate. And so there is gonna be a couple day period, especially with paving. The milling operation, again, that'll take a half a day, and then it'll probably sit open for a while. And then there'll be another time when they come in for their half a day or a day and they start paving. And it is a tricky area too, because the road going through there has some weird grades going on. You know, it's not like a normal rural section. The crown's like inverted and rounded going through town, and then even when you go on that north end, it's all turned down into the middle of the road. So there is some things that are being addressed as part of that paving project. No, good question. Needs a lot of communication and coordination. Yeah.
Further?
When do you think you'll have that 2080 agreement done?
Well, my thoughts and my advice to the board is that it probably shouldn't be priority number one based on what we got going on right now, but it can happen this next month if that's what you guys want.
And I can help you with that,
Yeah, that's
but I
fine.
don't have that trial now.
Good, okay. Yep.
So,
And again, I'm big picture, I'm following where the money is right now, like FEMA and this project, just because these things can make like hundreds of thousands of dollars difference. So I'm thinking big picture on what really matters, like this way versus, you know what I mean?
And lean on him.
There you go. That's what we'll do.
We're busy working on 2019 values. We'll be doing that all the way up till the end of March when an assessment will have to be out. Just trying to get in compliance with the state so we don't get equalization orders. And I've given you all an invitation to my lunch and learn coming up next Tuesday. Hopefully you can show up for all the other part of it. Lunch will be provided and it should take probably an hour presentation. So I see y'all there. And I recommend I can go do that to you.
thank you.
Yeah, so that's all.
So the big news first, Kyle Uinger pled guilty yesterday, and we awarded a trial. You know, certainly, in a way, a little disappointed that we didn't get to have the trial because it would have been very unique, and probably one of the biggest trials we've maybe ever had in this county. So, at a plea bargain, in an exchange, compromise, we decided that we wanted to do some justice for the victim, the school district, and the community, and in exchange, Kyle Uinger may possibly leave prison alive one day. And that was all a very difficult decision for each of us to make. It was a hard sell, I know, for the defendant and his family. It saved this community a lot of money, a significant amount of pain. I think most importantly, we didn't have to put a victim through what was probably the worst time of his life again. And as such, I'll have a bit more free time in the next week or so, and then we'll go onward to the next thing we have, which is a termination of parental rights hearing on the 22nd of this month as of right now, and I expect that will last several days and will certainly occupy plenty of my time with regard to litigation. And we'll be filing another one of those. We have filed another termination petition, so we'll probably be setting another termination hearing sometime in the next couple months when we have time. So as usual, the juvenile court angle of things is keeping me busy, but I am most glad to announce that we will not have to have a trial, will not have to call in 138 potential jurors. Because we were following the school district schedule, we wouldn't even have had jury selection today because of all the snow. So that's a win too, and we'll be shipping Kyle Uinger back to the Tecumseh State Correctional Facility in Nebraska when weather permits, essentially, and we have clearance from probation. So that was the big piece of news. We got some other potential trials coming up in April and June. Those are robbery and drug distribution trials, not nearly as harrowing as a potential child sex abuse trial. So again, we're glad we avoided that. I worked with Stephanie on deed for economic development, and I was glad to hear that John Danos is going to be handling the development agreement and the minimum assessment agreement, because Stephanie found out and pointed out those pretty legally complex documents usually specialists too. So, you know, that's the long and short of it, and we certainly expected that we would be in trial today, and we were all very surprised when he went through with the plea yesterday. Until the moment he said the words, I did not think, and neither did anybody else that was involved, think that he was actually going to pull the trigger. So yesterday was quite the wild ride, and I'm glad that, for now, it's at an end.
Between conservation and attorney's office, we had approved the land, swap or transfer with Henricks, and that has finally been completed and executed.
I have one question for, to talk to Deb about with regard to the format of the deed, and then we'll be recording that, and we'll be all done. So I'll chat with you later about that, but after a very long time, it seems like we've finally gotten all that put together, and, you know, it was one of those transactions where everything that could be a delay seemed to happen. You know, at the end, the last bill they were waiting on was for the landowner to come because she had leg surgery and wasn't mobile and couldn't come to the attorney's office, so it seemed like everything that could end up in our way did, and we finally got through that, so I thank you guys for your patience as we, you know, slog through all that.
And auditor's office.
Have a lot of passports, we're all trying to get used to our new job role, get used to all that, and it's going smoothly. She was catching on really well, so it's going good.
Good, gentlemen, or?
I have one more.
Oh, one more thing.
I got a call yesterday from the Iowa DOT, and they're going to be doing a bridge revetment improvement project right on Highway 9, just to the east of Willow Creek. And as part of that, they're going to need to purchase, it's like either a tenth of an acre or 9/10 of an acre, it escapes me right now, but, so that'll be coming down the line. Just wanted to make you guys aware of that.
I got the call too from them yesterday, and I reviewed their plans, and one of the questions they had too, since it's in a drainage district, if there's any requirements from the board or anything that, you know, that would be required. I looked at the plans and I reviewed them. I also talked to Ivan briefly for like 5 minutes. I don't see any impact to like the drainage district. I mean, they're basically restoring stuff from that was damaged by the flood, you know, along the bridge abutments, and, you know, the channel's not being impacted. So big picture, I don't see anything from the board from an action as trustees for the district, that they don't have to really do anything, but I want to keep you apprised that that's what's taking place. They're doing some riprap along the bridge there, is what they're doing. And they're also fixing some scour holes and different things. And yes, they're going to need a temporary easement from Nick, you know,
Well, they said
conservation.
purchase.
They want to purchase
They
too,
will
okay?
purchase it.
And then there must be, is there other land too? I think there's on the north side that somebody else owns, or we might need a temporary easement, but again, that one really, does that apply more to the conservation board, or does it
Would be
apply to
the
them?
supervisors, because the conservation board does not have the power to dispose of property.
Okay. Yeah, so that'll be then the activities that you'll be involved with. But from a drainage district standpoint, I don't see any problem, and I even didn't think there was any issue too, so.
So, okay, there'll be more information on that. But just want to make you aware. Coming down, so.
Good. Thank you all. Supervisor Schulte provided a nice assortment of films this morning, so help yourselves on the way out. Grab one and stay for more excitement if you want. It works for you. Do we want to address the conservation board appointment briefly, or wait for 9:15? As to that issue, I would just share that in reviewing them all, I have no strong feelings one way or another on any of them particularly, but I do know John Schmidt has applied, expressed interest a couple times prior. One time, I think one of the gentlemen that was considering it also was just provided more information and the answers to questions, and seemed like a good choice at that time. I don't remember if another time it may be a gender equity situation, and Robin Wilson was Mayor comment on? I don't remember specifically. I know he's been interested a couple times and passed over, so at this point, I don't see any of the candidates personally I would like to encourage us to consider as that. Further consider that after the 9:15 item. Mr. Ellerbrook is here. We have the PNC.
I saw Mike down at the bakery this morning, and both had the same thought, I guess, about the same time. I'll just hand this to you. Give each one of the, you should at the table, if you would.
Usually you kind of wrinkled that up.
Well, yeah, I did. I didn't mean to, but I did. And, so anyway, promise fulfilled. I am here to deliver another dividend check for you guys. We've written this business for a long time, from 2004 until this last July, and we look forward to the opportunity to bid once again. Your dividend check today is $19,448, and it covers July 15 of 17 to July 15 of 18. Since I've been doing this for you, we've given you quite a little bit of money back in return, and as for good loss ratios, $165,000 plus. So, a good way to start out your day is to receive a little money. Okay? All right.
You know, son, if you can be divided in.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture. I haven't had time to have them do that. We'll get it done this week, okay?
That's great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Conservation Board members, we have 2 openings, as I understand it. We have, what, 6? Showing interest.
I like the idea of John Schmidt too. I think he'd be dedicated.
Just looking at the thoroughness as to how these were filled out, and I think not knowing really any of these folks, Martha and Tracy look to be the best filled out to me.
I don't have a problem with that either. I know both of these, and I think they did a good job.
No, I think they'd all be good. I've heard some express interest in making sure different areas of the county are represented. That might be a reason to consider Wade. The rest of the applicants are all geographically live fairly close to each other.
There's a John Smith too. Yeah.
That's right.
So there's a John Schmidt and John Smith.
John Smith would be
And Wade.
resident.
So the only thing I would point out is that, one of these, the first appointment in the order, I guess they resigned, will be a 1-year term, and then be up for reappointment again, and then the second one will be a 5-year term.
The 2 that resigned were both near Ocheegan, so really won't be changing things if both of them were near Ocheegan, so.
Currently, we have, 2 members from down by May City, and then 1 from Ashton, so. If you're looking at geographically.
What's your thoughts, Jerry? You're all right.
Well, any of them would probably be okay, you know. Yeah, I know them all. I'm not really sure. If you want to go geographically, yeah, then maybe, but I don't know if that's necessary or not. I don't know if it is.
I'd make a motion for Zach Marshall for the 5-year opening.
For both or one, okay?
Since they're different term times, they're just one at a time.
Right, do we want to make one motion filling both positions, or you want to do just favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. One-year position, I would again encourage us to consider
I would make a
John
motion.
Schmidt at that point.
I'd like to make a motion for John Schmidt.
Support that.
Like I say, we've got some pretty good applicants to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, they're all,
Yeah.
And that was the 1 year.
Yeah.
John Schmidt was the appoint, or a motion made to appoint him to the other term, which would be 1 year. Just for consideration for reappointment at that time. Any further discussion or comments? All those in favor of the appointment of John Schmidt, signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Good enough.
You will notify? I will notify you, notify the ones that applied. Thank you, appreciate it, thank you.
we have a meeting tonight,
We do. Gentlemen be invited.
Yes.
Good.
Have a good day. You too.
Investment policy, all three of them moved over, over again.
Hasn't changed since the last time, we just need to review it every 2 years. The auditors review it every year they come, so they let me know if there's any changes that need to be made, or think that something is different, but we haven't changed any way we're investing anything, so they'll keep it here local at the bank and, through the IT account. Otherwise, everything's been the same, nothing has changed as far as I am aware of.
That explanation, do we have interest in giving approval to the review or the investment policy? Motion. Jones makes a motion.
And then I do need all your signatures on the bottom too, if I can get it.
So, by the spots.
Yes.
All right, any further discussion concerning that? All those in favor of approval of the investment policy or reapproval, signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. So carried.
Thank you.
You need signatures on them?
Just called down there last night, I thought it was entry machine, that I knew it was.
Next item is the part-time custodian.
Thank you.
What you got to figure out? Jerry and I met with Michelle. Yeah, I think she'd do a good job. I really do.
Pretty dedicated.
Yeah,
Pretty capable.
very capable.
And she, you don't have any night work where she's at.
She's up at 2, I think it was, wasn't it? I didn't realize she went to work so early.
No, she's gonna put in some long days.
Yes, she is. She's at work at 5. You know, I think she'd do a very good job.
Very interested in it.
Yeah.
She was nervous about playing best, and we told
I can see that.
no, I think she'll be good.
So is there any time that she has to do that in between certain times, or?
No, she can, no, it doesn't matter what time it is. She come in early, Ernie comes in early and does like the baskets and in the bathroom, and
So when she gets off and out, so she can come down here?
she could, I guess, if she wanted to, or wait till 3:30 or something.
Ernie
does that, he just doesn't do the floors, I think that's everybody leaves at
Yeah.
4:30, but.
Floors and
And we kind of cover that,
Yeah.
And Kathleen kind of does a rotation of offices, there's a rotation of that.
I recommend we hire her.
I would too.
Minutes need to reflect the designation as a permanent part-time or a part-time, or, we looked at the handbook,
And she understands there's no insurance.
okay? So
She
she
understands
understands
that.
it. Part-time, expected to be more than 20 hours a week, even if the pay is at level, if it's designated part-time, then it's not eligible, okay?
No, that was discussed too.
Yeah.
That's good.
And she understands that even if on some weeks she exceeds 20 hours, that since she typically doesn't exceed those hours, that she won't be eligible for insurance. I'll sure that.
Okay, no, good. Alrighty, we have a recommendation from these gentlemen to, or did you make a motion, sorry?
I can make that motion.
Okay, recommendation and a motion from Mr. Schulte and support from Mr. Helmers to offer the part-time custodial position to Michelle Ackerman, making that appointment. Any further discussion? All those,
It's $15 per hour, is that what you can do?
okay. Then all those in favor of that appointment, signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
I have a agreement that I have part-time. Make sure that goes.
All right. Anything briefly on the, road guy construction for trucking services?
Big picture, I found another vendor that can haul about as cheap as I could possibly ever find. You know, like when you look at the trucking rate, like per ton mile and what he's, estimating for costs associated with it. In the end, that should probably shave off another $25,000 to $30,000 off our rock hauling. So that's why I bring this for you. The other contract I had with, them, again, it was optional. It was completely as an option, for, concrete materials. And I needed that as a backup, because it wasn't a bad price, but this is a really good price. So that's why I'm bringing it to you, so we have now a really good trucking price.
Does this require or exclude the other one, or?
Yeah, I have options to utilize either one theoretically, because if we run into a problem, I need the product here. I mean, I can't be, you know, saving, there's other losses too, you know, we're dealing with a $500,000 issue here, you know.
Can they start hauling at any time, or?
It's when they start producing, because they're gonna start producing probably March, April, whenever they get their wash plant up and running. I mean, they can't do it now because it's too cold, so, whenever they're producing the aggregate. So, yes, it'll happen in the spring, it'll probably happen a lot in May, is when it'll really start hitting the ground. I might be able to get some tonnage with my guys and my trucks, because he does have a pile up, so that's my goal, is to get a couple thousand tons. You know, it's building work for us, so.
Yeah, well, with that recommendation from the engineer, do we want to consider approving the contract with the road guy construction for trucking services?
I'll make that motion.
Is it with road guy or is it two different?
Road Guy is the company,
Okay.
and they have a contract to provide trucking services for us. And it's based on a per ton mile price, and it's also, there's actual rates to each of those shipping locations. My Thomas Pit, my Linus Pit, also up by Highway 9, you know, I have a drop-off location and down by Ashland, so.
Thank you, Mr. Schulte. Report from Mr. Jones, any further discussion concerning that? All those in favor of approval signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. We'll jump down to item 9, or 9:30 item, sorry.
You could print and sign your name there.
I just wanna make
make sure everybody got the letter I sent out on Friday.
Oh, I got
Then I'll definitely read that.
They were both. I have a copy of that letter.
Yeah. Was that?
Can I get a copy of that?
Absolutely. I never was trying to get hold of it. Did you get a copy of the letter I wrote?
Yes.
Okay, okay, good, thank you.
I got this 2 times.
Go. A couple handouts for you.
Come on, come on.
Yeah.
It's an open meeting. Is it a friend here or whatever?
Yeah. Oh, come on, sit down, Dave.
Okay.
We were gonna have, Nate was gonna show up, but he's out in the plow truck, so he can't make it, right? But Dave, our mechanic, was able to show up briefly here. Basically, just wanted to have a brief discussion, wanted to, again, just thank the board for, all their consideration that they have, given the secondary road department and the hourly employees there, and also even for the thoughtfulness in how they addressed things last year by breaking down, the process in a 2-year period. Just really want to thank you for that. With this letter and some of the background information that I gave, I just wanted to, we're respectfully requesting a slight increase to accommodate some of the impact to their families' budgets from this year. It's just a respectful request. That we understand it's not an easy, thing for anyone, but we would open it up for discussion if you guys would like to have a discussion on it. Just respectfully requesting a 3.5% raise on behalf of the secondary road crew. Again, the letter that I handed out to you was after discussion with my guys, actually going and meeting with them and having a conversation and writing a letter and having them review it, that they're on board with it, that this is how they want to communicate. So we apologize for the previous letter that went out. That letter is being replaced with this letter. And if you have any questions for Dave, we have Dave here too, who can, he can talk to as well.
I discussed with Aaron, and, I don't find the opportunity to address some of this. I guess at this point, my thoughts are when the entity decided to no longer retain the union, the collectively bargained agreement was gone, and everything could have gone back to the employee handbook that the rest of the counties or employees receive, or non-union members receive. And, we agreed last year, first the step was taken to reduce back to the 50% family participation, and when it was requested, a different decision was made to phase that in over 2 years, stepping down 5% each year. My recollection is that that was basically agreed upon by the ones that were here on behalf of the secondary road crew, that they appreciated that approach. And then,
I was gone at that time last year, so I don't know what went on, I guess.
okay. So it's not that we made decisions that are contrary to something we had put into place. As well, in addition to that, we executed an MOU and allowed portions of the collectively bargained agreement to remain to secondary roads advantage that other county employees don't get. So I believe we've taken good steps, and I want to have a good working relationship. My philosophy has always been I want to treat people so that a union isn't necessary.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
I think that,
We all feel the same. Go ahead, Dave.
when we got out of the union, we didn't know really how to handle this negotiation thing. Some of the guys got together and drafted that first letter, which probably didn't set the right tone, I don't think.
I appreciate this new letter, and I'm willing to look past the first one, but I would agree it was.
Yeah, That wasn't how it was meant to sound, but.
Yep. And this is an accurate reflection of how it really is.
Yeah.
And there's two things that are being, presented and respectfully requested in the letter. There's two things. One is a 3.5% pay increase for this fiscal year to offset their what's going on with their health insurance. And this is solely for this year. It's not they're not requesting this, they're really focusing on this year and the hit that they're taking this year. And then the second thing is, as the final request that we have is we would like to know how we can improve the level and frequency of open communication between the board and the heavy equipment operators in the secondary road department. Any thoughts or ideas regarding this would be much appreciated. Our goals are aligned and we desire a team environment that provides the best value to our taxpayers. And we're truly grateful for your consideration and would like to reiterate our appreciation to be able to serve the people of Osceola County. So one thing that I think people they're actually very positive because they see that we took a course, we changed the insurance so that we have probably a better future, because now we have this self-funded setup now that we're doing, and we have a high deductible, and right now we're seeing that this could end positive, this could be a lot more positive for the future. But they're also looking for what's the vision of our leaders, what's the vision of our board in regards to that long term. Where does this go to and how could it pay back, even though they're going through some little bit of pain now, what's the future hold? You know what I mean, regarding healthcare, what could it hold, I would say, and what would be the goals of the board? So that's the other aspect that we wanted to present before you, and obviously, we probably don't have time to, get into deep, but it's something also to go home and to consider. That last question, how can we continue a dialogue with the secondary road guys and have a continued relationship that can benefit us long-term down the road too? Because we're all part of the same team.
After now, I don't foresee us treating secondary road anybody any different than we do anybody else. I really don't. It was just this first step.
Yep.
Of getting to the, 50%?
50%.
Yeah. And I think that's the only part that hurt us this first 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
But from now on, I don't see anything changing. That's my personal thought.
Yep.
With this different deductible, with this buy-down thing we're doing now, how's that gonna change anything down the road? Is that gonna make anything better for us as far as premium-wise, or?
Well, I wish I could predict what the insurance company is
Yeah.
going to do. I wish I could say yes.
But was that the goal of doing that?
The goal is to save some money. And whether that's going to work or not, it's going to take a few years to ride this out.
Yeah, because it's been kind of a screwed up mess to start out with.
But for right now, it's not going to, you're not going to see any change.
Yeah, that was one positive thing is this year we did have an increase, and that's a big deal. It's really important.
It is a big deal, because we're going to see all kinds of increases.
And with the whole team environment too, everybody's doing their part to reduce exposure and keep, rates better too, just from that side. And then on top of it, when we build a pot,
then we can start looking.
We can start looking at it, and that's where I think they would like to have a better feel of the pulse of kind of like the vision and the goal and the long term. And I guess that's my job too, how I can communicate that on your behalf. I am glad to do so, but I definitely want to do anything in my power to improve anything between the hourly people, because they are kind of out there and they don't have the same interaction level, and I think that's important to.
Hopefully in the future, if we see rate increases, I'm hoping this will soften the blow a little bit for everybody.
Yep.
As well, that's our goal.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think we're looking at it in the right direction.
Just trying to keep things affordable.
Absolutely. I see it as a very positive move. I haven't seen it.
I've taken no approach to this to only look out for the county in it. I mean, the steps we're taking are beneficial to the county, but it's also so that we can continue to offer the same level of coverage to the employees that they've had before versus just stepping it back and having less coverage to retain the same expense. So it's certainly with a hope to benefit both sides. It's not a one-sided And as far as communications, I'm absolutely open to that personally. I'm open to phone calls and discussions, but I don't want to overstep a role where you have a supervisor you need to work through and with. I don't wanna take his position and working directly with the employee, you know, I don't do that with other offices either, so I'm trying to be consistent, but I'm not gonna say I'm not open to conversations or phone calls or.
Well, before it was, the engineer was on your side, and it was, you know, so it's different than it used to be, but.
We're all the same team here, our goals are aligned, you know, and I understand, you know, they came from an experience too for many, many decades where they operated as a bargaining unit, and so the times are changing, and I think hopefully it's changing for the good, and we want a long-term. Yeah. And, big picture, we're all part of the same team. We're all here to do a good job, and we look for any ideas or thoughts or creativity that you have, you know, to help this, and I agree with you too, there's a good point. The goal here isn't necessarily to change the process, like, you know, being the department head, but any way that we can, with that, being thoughtful of all this, you know, we're always open to ideas and suggestions and opportunity, and I guess like Jason said, anybody can call him.
And we don't wanna micromanage any of the offices. I don't feel that's our job.
Fully agree with that too.
If we have a bitch, we'll come to you.
Exactly. You will.
But, and the sheriff's department did not get a 3.5% raise. Just so that,
Yeah.
because that's still in negotiations.
Yeah.
What was it, 2.47? Something like that.
475.
Yeah.
Sheriff is receiving
Sheriff is,
3.4
people
or
are,
something like that.
Yeah, the elected officials,
Elected officials and the other county employees are at 2.475. The union members of the sheriff's office have not been reached in agreement yet.
Yep. And I did explain that to you, right? But yeah, now it's even being re-explained to the sheriff.
Officials,
Yeah. It was only the sheriff himself that received that raise. The bargaining group has not come to any terms yet.
And we didn't have any choice on some of that. We got
no, that we don't have a choice. The one choice we have is on our
percentages.
I think we only got, what, 2? 1.8.
Well, again, this letter, it should be the letter we want to submit as a formal letter, replacing the old. Hopefully that's just kind of forgotten about, and we can continue discussions down the road too. Long term, we just want a healthy relationship that benefits everybody and ultimately benefits the taxpayer.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
As the engineer has requested, we consider 3.5 versus the 2.475. We want to address that, or?
I think we can address that at a later time, can't we?
Big picture, if you want to know what it means, it's not going to make any difference on my budget, big picture. I mean, I think I figured it out, it's about $9,500 total between all the different, you look at all the employees that are impacted by 16 employees, that's what it would come to.
If that number changes, I would like that to be reflected in what we publish in the budget, not after we published it, but.
Correct.
And they're here and have asked that request, I guess in conversation, thought it would be reasonable, but yes, we could address it later.
I guess my thoughts on where we stop, where we start.
Yeah, that's something I think we should sit down and talk about.
Then again, remember, whether, and if we're not pushing it, it is a respectful request here. They're asking it for this year when they were getting hit because it helps them get a little bit more of an adjustment. Because when they get hit by the insurance like that, their actual increase isn't much at all, you know, for year to year, they kind of flatline. And that's what they're asking for. Again, it's just a respectful request. Hopefully we don't belabor it any more than that. But yeah.
Okay.
Remember what our increase was last year? 3?
Mm-hmm. It was 3%. Correct.
year to year as this is being phased in, and I believe we established the approach we're gonna use. I'm personally not in favor of doing a different increase than what we approved for the other departments. I shared it with you, and it's not a, it's in line with what we cast as a vision when we were moving in this way. I thought the ones that were here last year understood that, and as I crunched the numbers, they were impacted to a greater extent last year with the insurance that we saw, even with the raise, so I think it's reasonable. I don't enjoy telling people no, but I am content sticking with the approach we identified, but if we want to consider it further at a later date,
I think we should.
You guys have the information now to review more detail, so, whatever, now, the budget can handle it, so that's not an issue, just so you're aware of that, the budget won't be impacted by it. It's really up to you guys, and again, it's not a demand here, it's really a respect for it, so, thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I don't intend to put this back on the agenda at any point. If you guys have done the research that you need to readdress it, then we do, but we're gonna say we're gonna discuss it at later.
Well, we'll be going through more budget shit, so that's all part of the budget.
Okay.
Wonderful.
All right.
Hey, Jonathan.
We're done with you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, thanks for stopping in, Dave.
Last thing you brought in was the Howlett's
Yeah.
contract.
I thought that was theoretically approved. When Wayne Slofeld was here about a month ago, we talked about, purchasing gravel from Hallett for shouldering material for the Tyler Avenue project, at $6 a ton, but I didn't see it on the minutes. So, I didn't know if there was an actual action that took place. Maybe there wasn't an actual, so all I'm asking for is, if everybody's still on board with that, to take action on it so he can sign it. That's all it is, so that Jason can sign off on the contract.
I'll make a motion to approve the Howell material. It's not been done. I thought we did it.
I thought we did it too, to be honest, I just,
What day was Wayne here? The 8th.
Tile claim update.
oh yeah. Anything here, if they print that, sign and print that.
Tile claim update.
Oh, yes. Nolan, so,
Tile claim update.
we had a discussion with, the county, the attorney, the drainage attorney, what's his name again?
Jim Hudson.
Jim Hudson, that was it, great guy, very knowledgeable, we really enjoyed that. And I had that with Nolan, and we reviewed the claim and the issue at hand. Big picture, at the end of the day, we're exposed because we are responsible for for the cost associated with installing a tile to the roadway. There were some steps that were not followed by the applicant that isn't right, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't change anything. If we're gonna pursue this, our recourse would be like, what would the cost difference be if we could have done it differently? So at the end of the day, we'd probably be talking about like $4,000 or $5,000, and we'd be on the hook for attorney fees, and so in the general, recommendation of both our county attorney and Jim, it's just not worth it, but we should document this and know this for future reference, because in dealing with this, if this happens again, we'll be more prepared, and no one will be involved right away, especially with relating to the individual at hand and what took place, because now we have.
Well, I think you need to put some teeth into the permit, that there needs to be consequences if you do the work before you have the permit.
Yeah, we've talked about changing the language of the permit, and, I've already kind of submitted some changes. Aaron's come back with some changes, and I think that that's gonna be part of it, is that, failure to comply with, applicable rules and regulations associated with this permit, failure to comply with the language of this permit may void said permit, including at the application stage. We've talked about that. And, we're not gonna sit here and throw names around, but we know what we're dealing with, And in the future, like Aaron said, I'll be involved from the beginning with these sorts of things, and we'll make sure that we're not dealing with any kind of situation in which ambiguity or misunderstanding causes us to spend more money. Because at the bottom, that's what this is about here. Is that we were gonna be on the hook regardless for the cost of a basic tile crossing. And something more than a basic tile crossing was essentially requested by the landowner and was taken care of by the contractor. And at the end of the day, if you wanna get into the legal nuts and bolts of it and chop it up really fine, what that is a contractual transaction that involved a verbal contract and, certain actions that were later, verified and vindicated by the contractor, in which, for us to prevail and cause the landowner to pay, we would have to prove that the landowner exceeded whatever authority or rights they had to request things, and that our language or discussion did not give a reasonable person the understanding they should proceed with that. And for us to prevail in a court of law on that, I think is a pretty slim chance, or even if I'm charitable and give us a good chance, we're gonna spend a whole lot more than $5 grand to get to that point. And we will still have to pay for our own attorney, and if we lose, we probably end up possibly having to pay for their attorney. So I think that expensive and as annoying as this is, it's best that we take our lumps on this and move on. I know that nobody likes to think that they spent $5,000 for something they didn't have to. I'm sure the quality of that tile crossing was in some ways better than an average one.
It was.
I don't expect that that's much solace to any of you guys, but I think the legal realities at play here are such that we probably just have to take our lumps on this one and move on, and understand that in the future, we're going to be paying a whole lot more attention to the application process, to what's in the application, to what's in the permit, if the permit is granted, and additionally, what we are going to do to enforce the bonds of that permit with regard to our communication with contractors and how we behave with those landowners. And it's unfortunate that that's the cost of the lesson is $5,000, but that's where we're at.
On the bright side, it's a better product, so it shouldn't need a repair or replacement.
No, and now it doesn't damage. In fact, if it was on a paved road, we would have done it this way, period. It wouldn't even been different. The issue is it was a gravel road, it was a deep tile crossing. I'm not saying it would have been $5,000, it might have only been $1,000 cheaper, who knows? We'd had to get it bid, and when we all got it done, it wasn't necessarily an easy crossing. I don't know how high the bids would have came in.
I'm just saying there's a process for it, and you need to stick with the process, because otherwise there's no point in having a permit if you can just do whatever you want.
Well, and we know that in a way there's a learning experience because we're learning who we're dealing with. And most people were just, this wasn't necessarily, it's because of the individual took action that normal people probably wouldn't have done too. So it's not like this happens all the time. It's not like, this was a learning experience too.
I'm just saying we need to prevent it from happening going forward.
Yeah,
Whatever we need to do to change our permits for.
Yeah, we'll want to approve that as claims, because right now, it's really this contractor's on the hook, and he's the guy suffering for this. And it's real. Now, the good thing is he knows now, he says, he'll call me, if somebody he wants to make sure it's approved, because he was not aware that it wasn't approved. He was led to believe something.
That claimant, the question has been motioned for approval by Mr. Helmer, support from Mr. Jones. Do we have further discussion concerning that? All those in favor, signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, as to the Hallett materials item, sorry, I missed the title line portion. I go back to the January 21 minutes, pre-purchasing proposal for materials from concrete materials to get rid of price is in our minutes. I believe that's just inherent or mistaken identification. I believe that was Hallett materials. I believe we did do that approval.
We did that that wasn't actually, we took it pre-purchasing proposed.
That would have
I think it does state concrete materials instead of Hallett materials. I believe it's incorrectly identified.
Okay, well, if you're good signing up on it.
That today's minutes, that the January 21 minutes, it inherently identified Hallett materials as concrete materials. I think it's.
That makes sense.
Approval.
And that one's the wrong date, too.
I just wondered that too. We had 2 days in a row and now we have 21 and 23.
Oh, okay. Barb said she's correct, this is valid.
Okay, my copy is 21 on it. So it'll be the minutes from the 22nd. made a motion and support to approve that, do you still want to vote on the second approval of it, or?
Withdraw it. We've already approved it.
Then we can, I guess, wait for 10 o'clock. I think you're done with us.
Thank you, sorry about that, gentlemen. Sorry for taking so much of your time too.
So the speaker says it's all right. So that a lot of tissue damage in the service. Working on it, what's the hand, what happens? He's playing goalie. So I have to understand what that is. That was a soccer game, that's where he's playing right. We're gonna be late night. Block the ball, and just rest everyone. We were on the red guard. I rolled my hand, I was in the elevator. Getting old. You know, 50 miles. I figured that was why, but. So, I mean, the setback thing. Also, you guys didn't talk about Dave was just saying just now, he said the guys should like this, it's like trying to turn around and come back to close. And the problem is, I used to live over there. That's why I know which ones are over there now. Yeah. Because I had it with me and Mark, here at the courthouse, before we got the city up there for a long time, so it's been a long time. I have been one car.
Oh, yeah, Jeff.
Stuff like, what do you mean, flying down?
No. More interesting now. I brought 18 over 60, and I thought 60 would be a piece of cake, but it's crap. Yeah.
They get away with that.
It did. It was an adventure. They're doing like 40 on Highway 60.
Gee.
Yeah.
Came back from the city Sunday, coming down 35, and I was doing 35, 40.
Really?
But I got on 90, Thursday, 75 miles an hour.
Really? Not interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, 10 o'clock, but prior to starting that, I have a text here from Mr. Reed we have Endeavor 1 and 2 project details, permit application, forthcoming permit application. Mr. Bryce?
Good afternoon. Is there anybody have a seat here? Thank you. Want to make sure everybody's got a copy of the presentation. I have some extras if anybody would like to. I'd like to just start off by thanking the board for the opportunity to come in this morning and provide an update about the Endeavor 1 and 2 project, as well as answer any questions anybody may have. As you know, my name is Jeff Bryce. I'm an agent for NextEra Energy Resources and Osceola Land 1 and 2, which are the Endeavor 1 and 2 projects. Currently, we're in the process of conducting our final permit application. The permit's been submitted to Aaron's department for some proposed maintenance to the Endeavor site, which is going to increase longevity of the site and allow the wind farm to continue to operate for another 15 to 20 years. And we've got a short little presentation here, if you will, kind of gives you a little background in NextEra Energy as a whole, and then a little more of the project. But if you guys like, we can start on the second page there with our values. And I'd just like to quickly touch on these. Our first one is we're committed to excellence. From our leadership all the way at the top down to myself and Jamie Gentile, who I'm joined with today, can really attest to our company is big on providing the very best products we possibly can to our customers and to our landowners. By our landowners allowing us to be on their properties, it's the only reason we're allowed to operate these wind farms across the U.S. And we understand that we're a part of these communities for years to come, and we need to be doing everything we can to make sure we're a good member of that community. Secondly, by doing the right thing, it really probably the biggest one I'd like to hit on, and with that is transparency. I'm very big on making sure that all of our landowners have all their questions answered, whether they're a participating member of the project or an adjacent member of the project, that they're not left in the dark, that they have somebody they can reach out to and get questions answered, whether that be somebody from my development team or somebody from our operations team, which are the actual guys that maintain the site on a day-to-day basis, or somebody down in Florida who handles their payment system. If they've got questions about anything like that, they know who they can talk to. And lastly, treating people with respect, as I kind of touched on, we wouldn't have a wind farm if it wasn't for our landowners and being part of these communities. And we wouldn't be in the place we are today, being the U.S.'s largest producer of renewable energy, if it wasn't for our relationships with landowners and them allowing us to come back and have different iterations of projects and continue to keep these things moving. I'll briefly touch on the next slide there. We are American owned and operated. We are investments in 32 states and Canada. That just means we have projects in 32 states of the U.S. And in 2018, we were the world's #1 operator of wind and solar. That was true for 2017. We look to keep it true for 2019 as well. And then as we kind of turn the page there, we get more into the Endeavor specific projects. So we got a little project timeline here. Kind of shows where we've been and where we're headed. Back in 2018, we began the planning and engineering for this maintenance overhaul. Currently, the machine that's out there now, as I'm sure all of you are aware, is the 2.5 megawatt Clipper machine. NextEra purchased the Clipper site some years back, and since then, Clipper has gone under, right? They closed up shop. Clipper's no longer a company that builds wind farms or builds wind turbine equipment. So, as many of you know, we've had some maintenance issues with this Clipper site and keeping it operating at a level that is economic for not only the customer, but for NextEra as well. So, the decision was made in mid-2018 to begin looking at a major maintenance overhaul, which includes replacing the Clipper nacelle, which is the generator on top of the turbine. If you look down at that bottom right picture there, the actual box that houses the generator up tower. So we began looking at replacing that and replacing it with new blades and extending the life of the project for another 15 years or so, 20 years.
So is that, you said that twice, is that from today or beyond what the original life was? That'd be from today, 15?
That'd be, yeah, another 15, 20. So with the Clippers today, we're starting to get to a point where the maintenance of the site is becoming uneconomical. With the the diminishing amount of supplies we have, the gearboxes and parts for these clipper towers, and finding replacement parts, it's becoming very difficult. It's also becoming a little intrusive to landowners where we need to bring out the heavy crane, if we need to do up tower replacement parts. So, as an example, if we have an issue on turbine 6, for example, we gotta bring out the crane, they gotta do the work there, and then 3 months later, we learn that turbine 7 has the same issue, and it's, really intrusive to that landowner that we gotta come out, bring the crane, and we gotta bring the crews back out to do the maintenance. So the decision was made, let's get the Clipper stuff out of there, and let's bring in some GE stuff. Stuff we've been working with for over 20 years now, we're very familiar with. These guys are making a top-of-the-line product, that's gonna stand up to the elements and the test of time. So the decision was made to begin this process. Now, to give you a little background, we've been conducting this, we started the same exact maintenance activity over in Winnebago and Hancock counties on the east side of Iowa, right off 35, Forest City area. And that project kicked off in January, about 30 days ago, and it's the same sort of maintenance exercise.
Why does the blades need to be longer?
So the increased blade length is about 10, to give you the numbers, it's about 10 meters per blade. And that's what's going to do is help what we call the cut-in speed, or the amount of wind that the turbine can capture at a lower speed. It allows that energy to be produced at a lower energy, or a lower wind speed. So
10 meters longer?
10 meters longer than that.
This shows 20.
So that's the overall rotor diameter.
Okay.
So each individual blade would be, so in any event, at lower wind speed, we can generate that 150 megawatts, the nameplate of the site.
So that's an improvement over the old blade.
Exactly. So
that's not maintenance, that's an improvement.
That would be, yeah, so it's we're thinking about it as we're increasing the fuel efficiency of the site.
I'm kind of confused by that, you keep calling it maintenance, but when you advertise it, it's advertised as an upgrade.
So we call it the maintenance exercise because we're actually not increasing the nameplate of the site. Usually when we start increasing the number of megawatts that the site will produce, that's when we're improving the capacity of the site. In this case, we don't actually increase the overall generation of the site.
But you're improving your ability to generate
That's
electricity at
correct.
lower wind speeds.
Yes, sir.
So that is an improvement.
That would be an improvement, yes, absolutely. So with anything, the customer that we have on board for this project, years ago we had a contract in place that they purchased the energy for a set number of years. And with anything, prices and commodities are going down. Things are becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So the contract price we had on this site was higher than what it is today. So we went back to the customer and said, if we do this exercise here, and we're able to put these new blades on here and this new GE, the cell and generator, we'll be able to lower the cost of energy because our operational costs will go down and the efficiency of the site will go up, which will drive the cost for you down. The customer was accepting and willing to sign another contract to extend the purchase of the power.
So are the landowners going to be paid more?
Yes, sir. So we've amended we're still working through some of the Endeavor 1's contracts, but all of the Endeavor 2's have been amended. We've increased their compensation based on generation, so they'll see an increase based on the efficiency of the site.
And how many sites are these longer blades going to impact that aren't? Everybody already had a headache with these things that didn't like them, that were outside of the blade length for flicker and everything else. How many people, because I've already had a handful of phone calls of people saying they are going to be impacted by the length of these blades now, even though they weren't by the shorter ones before.
So when the site was originally built, the Osceola County ordinance, the only setback requirement was 1,200 feet from a structure, from a house. Since then, I think in 2013, you adopted your new ordinance with your new setback requirements.
Helped us through that process.
Your new setback requirements. So the site today violates, I believe it's going to be over 30 of the 60 sites violate in some fashion your ordinance today. With the current turbine as it is today with the blades that are out there today. With the new blades, I could get the exact number for you, but I believe it was something like 8 or 9 additional violations occurred with the new blades and your current ordinance today.
How many landowners is that going to impact that weren't affected by the blade length before?
I could get an exact number for you. I wouldn't have it off the top of my head.
Because in order to, I guess, follow along with what you got here, being a good steward and respect affecting the people in the area, if they weren't already impacted by that and they're not a landowner, why would I wanna impact them with these longer blades?
So, I'm curious, like, to the amount that you think they'd be impacted.
With the length of the shadow
Okay.
and the noise will be
So-
more because they're longer blades.
Absolutely. So we've conducted both the noise and shadow study that have been made available to your Board of Adjustments, and both are public. Noise, we saw about a half a decibel increase from the site today. So it was measurable, but really indeterminable. You couldn't be able to determine half a decibel in a perfectly quiet room.
They're not quiet now, so.
Sure.
Adding another half a decibel onto it, I mean.
So that's your 50 dBA threshold of the current county ordinance. Shadow flicker is addressed based on a setback of 1,250 feet from a residence. And what's important to remember with this exercise is turbines won't be moving. We're going to utilize the same towers. The only thing that will be replaced is the generator and the blades of tower. So turbines aren't getting any closer to anybody's homes or anything like that. Shadow flicker, we did see an increase on some shadow flicker on some homes. But in the report, when you read those findings, you will see that the modeling that is done to conduct those reports assumes a glass house and a zero cloud day for 365 days a year. The report reflects that. So when you see the numbers, it's kind of interesting to think that, you know, that it may show shadows landing on a home, but it assumes that home is entirely glass and that there is no structure around that house, including barns, trees, or any sort of shading like that, and that there would be no clouds in the sky for 365 days a year. So that's going to be the models that you see. Now with that, we did see an increase in our modeling, in our projection. And for those landowners that are going to be affected, we're offering mitigation strategy in the form of, we'll go out and to each individual landowner that claims that there's a difference, they're impacted newly today from yesterday. And we're going to meet with them one-on-one and see if we can't do to mitigate the shadow flicker there. If that involves planting trees, if it involves doing...
trees take a long time to grow.
We can plant grown trees though.
When you're looking at how that, I've been out to a couple of those sites, and I honestly don't know how you can mitigate that with a couple of trees and maybe some shades.
But you should let them know that they should contact them, because mitigation is available, and the landowners are or the homeowners are the ones that would have that determination.
And they'll still have to have their public hearing for zoning and all that.
I'm not prepared to say that mitigation, or whatever they might consider, isn't acceptable to a homeowner. That's their call.
So if I can add to that, you know, we've done this all over, especially down in Kansas. This was a very similar scenario where we were conducting this maintenance exercise, and this mitigation strategy of meeting with landowners one-on-one worked very well for us down there. We were able to sign a handful of landowners.
What happens with the people that you can't get to mitigate?
So, I mean, we're very flexible. There's lots of things we can do. I mean, I can't speculate on saying that there would be no middle ground.
Because I guess ideally what I'd like to see, if you can't reach an agreement with those folks, would just be the same link blades that are currently on those 8 sites or whatever that affect those 8 people, or whatever it shakes out to be. Because I don't know what your other options are, rather than getting everybody wrapped up into litigation.
Which is obviously something we want to do. We've been a member of this community for over 10 years. We're looking to remain a member of this community and continue to work with our landowners. I do believe that there is an option here on the table where we are able to work with all of our landowners. And in scenarios where, I hate to even speculate where there'd be a scenario where we were unable to come to an agreement with someone. But that being said, I mean, we are very willing to work with everybody. You know, we want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, whether they're assigned landowner or not.
Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, we've already contacted if not all the landowners that would be impacted at this point.
Yeah, so our land team's on the ground now meeting with folks one-on-one to make sure that prior to our hearings coming up for our
I don't think everyone's been met yet, because I've had quite a few
Sure.
phone calls from people that haven't been talked to about
Yeah.
anything yet.
Right, but the point is the land team's on the ground and they're working through that process of trying to mitigate with everybody so that their questions are answered prior to any hearing, right? Before they get a letter in the mail saying, hey, NextEra is here looking to execute the exercise. And in addition to that, you know, we held an open house last week. We publicized in the paper to invite anybody in the community to come out and meet our sound experts, our shadow experts, our environmentalists, and members from our engineering construction team to answer any questions they may have. We had an okay showing. The weather was a little squirrely that night, but I mean, we've been doing everything we can to make ourselves available for questions.
Is that an independent third party or somebody that you hired?
Which is that?
Or that you had available for them to ask questions to?
Sure. So the sound and shadow is a third party. Environmental is our in-house environmentalists, but the sound and shadow folks are a third party that we contracted.
So another question I had for you. How are you guys going to recycle those blades that you're taking down?
Sure. So it's not only the blades, it's in the cells as well. So the generator components and the gearboxes up tower. The blades are actually cut into manageable pieces. They don't have to be hauled off on a long trailer.
They're not going to get up in our landfill, are they?
No, absolutely not.
From what I've heard from other communities where these projects have been done, their landfill ended up getting filled up with all these blades. They're not biodegradable. They don't break down. It's glass and polyresins. So I don't know, what are you doing to recycle?
And I've read that on the internet as well. That's not something that we do.
Yeah, all of our stuff, everything that can be recycled is recycled, but our fiberglass is hauled back down by GE off-site. I can get the exact area where it's going for, but we do not dispose of locally.
So what do they do with them?
So as far as everything's recycled that can be recycled. The parts of the fiberglass that are unsalvageable, they do end up in a landfill or a disposal area of some sort. But I can't say we're not going to take them to your local landfill. They are going to be held off-site on our trucks.
But I can't see, looking at all the turbines we have around here, I don't know that we got enough landfill space when it comes time to retire these and replace the blades to stick all that material. I would prefer them to see them hauled out of the area somewhere else and put into someone else's landfill.
Well, that's what I'm saying, they will be hauled off.
Out of my backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can benefit from.
Yeah, just to reemphasize, we're going to take those off-site. They're not going to remain here.
Yeah. And then the cells and the generator components, a lot of copper and such precious metals up there, so those are hauled down to our refurbishment site down in Ames, and they're deconstructed and the materials are recycled from there. And then secondly, a lot of our gearboxes we're actually able to donate to tech schools in the area, especially Minnesota and over towards South Dakota. We've got a lot of wind tech programs, and we're able to donate these older machines over there, and the students are able to learn to work on something that requires heavy maintenance. With that being said, this maintenance exercise is something that we're very familiar with. Like I said, we've done it in other parts of Iowa and the U.S. And in those scenarios, we've had, all of our landowners have been very supportive of the project, especially our assigned landowners, obviously, because we're going to continue to operate the site for the foreseeable future. Moving forward, we've been working very closely with Steve and Aaron and your current county ordinance to make sure that all questions are answered at the Board of Adjustments meeting, and that we are able to address your current county ordinances. One of which that we've done is not only hold the open house, but trying to make sure all of our decommissioning language and such is in place. Some things that weren't required when the site was originally permitted, we're doing everything we can to provide that documentation now, so that the county has really learned, from the past. The site's about 10 years old now, so we've learned a lot. The industry's come a long way, and we're doing everything we can to provide that information over.
Your longer blades, they will make more energy or more efficient energy, or what do you?
More efficient.
Yeah, more efficient energy. So
You still struggle with maintenance versus improvement.
Because from a testing standpoint, I see it as an improvement, it's not maintenance.
I think we're in trouble with the state law regardless on that, whether it's an improvement or it's maintenance. The way it was written when these went in is that it's based on an initial
I'm just confused.
evaluation.
You're telling me it's maintenance here, but then you advertise it as an upgrade in the paper. There's no mention of maintenance whatsoever.
Right?
And that might have been my doing, as far as calling it an upgrade project. I don't think that came from Xterra, so. I'm not sure what,
if I
all you're talking about.
I'm talking about the ad that Xterra had in the paper.
Well, so what Jeff had illustrated was that this is not going to produce any more energy. It's simply going to allow the machine to operate at a greater efficiency at a lower wind speed. So rather than waiting for a cut-in speed of, say, 20-mile-an-hour wind, it'll cut in at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So
it will produce more energy.
it will not produce more energy because the generator, the gearbox will not produce any more. It'll start at a lower.
You're gonna produce more energy. But it's still only at 2.5.
Right, so,
It'll max out.
it's a little bit of a wormhole when you get down into it. The best layman's way we've been able to explain is we're increasing the fuel efficiency of the site, right? The miles per gallon's going up.
How long will that G last compared to the Clifton? Will you have to redo this again?
No, so the GEs, we've been seeing the outside of 15 years, before conducting these maintenance exercises. And then also in these new GE machines, the amount of monitoring equipment that's up tower, meaning temperature gauges, vibration monitors, infrared cameras, all sorts of equipment that we can then transmit that data back down to our home office in Juno Beach, Florida, where they control every wind turbine across our entire fleet, and we can start forecasting maintenance. So between the improvements that we've seen and not only the gearbox technology, but the monitoring equipment, we're able to then determine, hey, we're seeing a weird vibration in this main shaft bearing, and the temperature's starting to spike a little bit. We can forecast that we may be starting to see a little friction, a little wearing there now, and we can go out now with 2 guys and a bucket truck and get that fixed, as opposed to waiting 3 months for the turbine, that bearing failing, the turbine shutting itself down, and then us having to bring a crane back out to do a more expensive maintenance exercise.
Aaron, how will this affect our roads?
Well, they'll be hauling some heavy, big, large trucks and with large equipment, and they have to get permits for all that. They also, so there's 2 aspects. The nice thing, because it's such a big project and it's all one company like that, we're gonna have a road use agreement that will protect us from the, damages and those things
So they
associated
will
with it.
pay for any?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
And then on top of it, there's permitting fees associated with, hauling as well as the truckers.
Like before, after they got done with the last batches and stuff, and it wasn't good and they didn't get it fixed.
Part of it too is I don't know that we had good road use agreements, things like that.
Went back to the permitting process from when the
Things were-
farm went in.
Yeah.
So that was the county's call
It
back
was more of the Wild West back then, so.
But they had constant maintenance on those things for the first 5 years, and they were out there all the time.
Look, I'm not here to name names or anything like that, as we said earlier, but Clifford didn't make any friends when they came in, right? These machines were maintenance expensive, and like Aaron was saying, a lot of the requirements back then, we didn't know what we know today, right? We didn't, just with NextEra, we didn't get to be where in the position we are today by making enemies, right? We do what we can with every community that we work in, and one of those things is road use agreements with future roads. We'll put bonds in place as well that are held separately from NextEra, so that in the event that anything were to happen to NextEra for the year coming, after the project is completed, that if we were to find a low spot on one of your roads, the county has the ability to draw from a third-party fund to make sure that the road maintenance can be conducted regardless of NextEra.
I think that's, memory serves, that's the 3rd set of blades now, is gonna be on those towers.
I wouldn't be able to say for every tower. I think there have been some blade replacements, yes. But the whole purpose of this is to stop that maintenance that's been recurring over and over and over.
What's the lifespan of blades?
So it really depends. Back then, I think it was like what we're seeing, like 8 to 10 years. Now, with the improvements that have been made in the fiberglassing process and the techniques they've learned, we're seeing outside 15 years.
Plus, I'm hearing from Washington, within 12 years, we won't be able to use fossil fuels, so we need to be allowing it.
So that would lead me to my next question. How much of this stays local as far as energy?
So, is anybody really versed in electricity or anything how it works? So we can go the real layman's term. Think of it as, to answer your short question, the electricity is used here in town. The lights powered today are powered by electricity generated by that wind farm. What's interesting to think of is where the electrons are transmitted. It's kind of like water going into a water tower and creating that back pressure. Once the water's in the water tower and you're at your home versus your neighbor's home and you turn the spigot on, you can't really say where those original drops of water came from, right? So it kind of went into one big bucket, and just to keep that water pressure there. That's similar to how electricity works.
Because I don't see, I'm a member of the REC, and we don't purchase any wind power.
Right, but your utility provider does.
my utility provider gets me, it comes from the Oahe Dam, is where the majority of all our electricity is
Right, but,
from.
so that may be where they have their power purchase agreement with, right? So which is similar to who purchases the electricity off of this site. But it's kind of, it's a weird thing, weird concept to wrap your head around, because once it's on the grid, on the transmission line, it's just electrons on the line. They get all intermingled up, and there's just creating that back pressure on the line to make sure the lines are always filled up.
So who are you selling the power to?
So right now, our off-taker is in the process of reviewing their contracts, and they're going through their approval processes internally, so we're unable to sit and to name them until they make their public announcement. But I can say that it is a local vendor of electricity. It's still confidential at the point until the mine management says we're allowed to release their name.
So Clipper was just the company that put them up?
Clipper was the manufacturer and the original installer.
But were you guys originally the instigator of this whole thing? NextEra was always?
No, sir. So when Clipper was having some financial issues, years and years ago.
They're the ones that came in
and permitted the site originally? Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
We were
That
not.
was my question, because they didn't do any of this stuff, as far as I'm concerned. Treat people right, do the right thing.
And, you know, and that's back to, I don't wanna talk about,
No, I understand
on those guys,
but I will say
Yeah.
that,
All those things were buried, like.
a real negative, that's why maybe.
Yeah, absolutely, and we completely understand that, and you know what, we held, our open house last week, and then the following night, we had a dinner for our sign landowners to allow them the opportunity to come in and meet the same people, and have dinner and have a more, formal presentation. And a lot of those issues came up, and, you know, we were able to introduce, our landowners to our construction team and let them put a face to a name and start discussions now, especially on, identifying low areas. You know, nobody knows your property like y'all do, and it's easier in the beginning if we can come out and start surveying some stuff now and identifying areas that are gonna need maybe an extra truck of gravel, or we're gonna need to avoid a certain area. If we can know now, then we can really avoid any headaches in the future.
Cause I know like a lot of those, like with Clipper and some of those other ones, they were set up like, I don't know, 15 or 20 LLCs deep. I don't know, are you guys set up the same way?
We do have some subsidiaries, yeah, but Osceola Wind Power, LLC, and Osceola Wind Power 2 LLC are the owners of this, wind farm, both phases, and they are subsidiaries of NextEra Energy.
Is NextEra part of, Florida Light Power?
We are actually, yeah. So, NextEra Energy is the parent company of Florida Power and Light, and NextEra Energy Resources is the sister company of that.
If we're questioning them and we don't like this, what's our benefit to standing up against them? We've got TIF areas that utilize evaluation that, these generate. If we just don't wanna play ball with them and they go away, that's a significant impact to our county budgets and what we've.
They're not gonna go away, but I think you have to have, you've gotta be conscientious of the other people that weren't impacted by the previous windmills. And I don't think it's fair to impact those folks that weren't impacted the first time by changing the zoning to do it.
No, there's no zoning being changed.
The setback requirements are gonna be different.
The requirements, won't be different. What they're asking for, it'll be addressed through a variance, through your board of
Yeah.
adjustment.
You're asking for a variance to get around the current zoning that's already on the books.
Correct.
So that's
But it'll
changing it.
But it'll be up to the board of adjustment to decide whether they approve it or not.
That's the process that's in place. We consider whether that's worthwhile or not. If it doesn't get approved, then that's addressed. But
The only reason I asked about Florida Light Power, I signed with them quite a few years back, and they treated me well. I have no complaints.
That's good to hear. You know, like, and that's why I like to touch on those 3 core values that we talked on, you know. Although I haven't been with this company a long time, but I started out as a land agent, actually being one of the guys that knocked on folks' doors. And, you know, you have to build a relationship before somebody invites you to go sit at their dining room table or their kitchen counter and discuss, you know, these projects with them. And I take a lot of pride in that, and I like to think that people understand that I'm not the only one at our company that feels that way. We need to be treating people with respect every day. And that's why I touch on as well as transparency. You know, we're not trying to hide anything from anybody. That's why we have our open houses. That's why we do our public formats. That's why our land teams are readily available to anybody that just likes to sit down and grab a cup of coffee and talk about it. And, you know, to your point as well, you know, moving forward, this would allow the project to continue to operate for the foreseeable future. You know, you did mention that you've had some phone calls from some folks that have come in that they're concerned. I'm going to leave you my contact information today, as long as my colleague Jamie here. I encourage you to pass that information along. I would love to sit down with each and every one of them, or one of my members of my land team, and hear exactly what their concerns are.
Well, I would assume during the process, you will have contacted them.
Absolutely,
in that area that are
sure.
affected.
Absolutely, but at the same time, if they would like to, you know, reach out to me directly instead of dealing with a member of my land team, I'm always available. And, you know, we have, like I said, we have our signed landowners. You know, it's unfortunate that you have been hearing some folks that are not excited about this project, but we have a lot of folks that are very excited to keep this project operating and continue to see the benefits of it. But with that, I mean, I'd love to open myself up for any further questions. I know we did talk about the road use agreement, any protections in there. That will come to the county board for ultimate approval. I believe you guys, you've already seen a very similar copy when we did the same exercise on one turbine last year in September. The turbine that we had the fire with, that turbine's up and operational. We had zero issues getting the new equipment in. It was very smooth. And we look forward to finishing the other 59. But as far as the road use agreement goes, that was the same document that you all saw back then. The only thing we're going to look at changing is the description of the roads that will be used, and I believe the amounts.
For performance of bonds, things like that, because there's a lot more at stake now and at risk in, you know, in regards to the project.
Are there any bridges in that area?
Not many, actually. They're almost all culverts in that area.
Sure, we can't get any new bridges out of it.
Yeah, I know.
We'll see. I'm sure I'll get a phone call from Aaron late night one. Say, hey, you guys want to turn right?
The process is covered in there.
Yeah.
And there's independent third parties that get involved with evaluating the infrastructure too, before and after and all that kind of stuff. And there's, it's addressed of how things are handled too. And it is, you know, it's favorable language to protect the county. And there is a bonding in place, there'll be bonding in place that reflects the potential damage that could be sustained by Osceola County.
Absolutely.
I mean, that'd be the goal. That's all I would recommend for approval. And what we had before was acceptable to me, like the contractual language, and was okay with Nolan too, and it was in the interest of the county protecting them. So Nolan and I will work on it again, and that's what we have a meeting for at 11 o'clock with them, to go over that and plan some of that out.
That's all I had, and as always, I'm going to leave a couple cards here. Aaron always has my contact information as well. Please feel free to pass along to your constituents. Love meeting new people and talking to people, so anything we can do to really answer any questions and keep this process.
How does this affect area spraying?
So, like, spraying?
Yeah.
So we're actually able to do a lot of, like, unique things with the turbines being where they are today. I'm sure any sprayers here are very, you know, they know where they are and stuff like that. We're going to go out if we need to and identify the changes, right, if it impacts any spraying patterns or stuff like that. And can it, in scenarios where the additional blade length would impact their spraying, we are able to shut those turbines down for 20 minutes or however long it takes them to get the passes on the field to allow that sprayer to continue its operations.
Is that only where the additional impact is felt, or is that
So I'm sure today, I don't know this off the top of my head, but I'm sure today if there's any operations out there, Harry, our operations manager, is well aware of it. I would lend to have him speak a little more to that, because I'm sure he's answered questions like this before. But I'm sure that if there's a new impact, we need to address it. We need to help out. I'm just not sure today if there is an impact.
do the area sprayers, do they know they can get those shut down while they spray?
Yeah, our biggest, hurdle, so to speak, is understanding that there is an issue that we need to be addressing. So as long as, and this is true for all of our sites across the U.S., as long as they're approaching us and letting us know, hey, we're having an issue, making these spray patterns, just bring it to our attention and we can figure a solution.
Well, a friend of mine sprays.
Okay.
And he doesn't, if there's windmills on their turbines, he doesn't spray them.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't think he realizes that he can get them shut down while he sprays.
So, sorry, were you saying?
Yeah, no, I was also gonna say too, is that if there's an issue with shutting them down, which in most of the farms that I'm aware of, the operations guys will work because it's a very small amount of time. They spray a section and they're gone and they're off to the next section. We can also, if we have to, we will work with the landowner to once again, mitigate any additional costs.
Your additional length is not the only issue. If there's a lower wind cut-in power, you're gonna have additional opportunities for spraying that will be impacted.
So I would encourage, like I said, I'll pass on my information and we can get that over to our operations manager, and make sure that they are in contact with it.
I don't think he realizes that.
Yeah.
I really don't.
So, and that just goes back to, we're a member of this community, right? We've been here for 10 years, this isn't a new project, we're not trying to build any more turbines or take any landowner's turbines away either, but this is also an opportunity to really address some of these issues that weren't raised the first time and find a solution.
How does that work, like if you call somebody and tell them to shut down, I mean, is that call you, I'm gonna spray it an hour, you can shut it down, or is that a 12 hours, 24 hours?
So there would be planning to some extent, I'm sure, to when they like to spray that field if they know, but then at the same time say, hey, we missed it yesterday, we're gonna be over there. And from our operations facility, or operation maintenance facility, it's just a click on a mouse and that turbine will shut down. Yeah. And that's why we like to keep contact with the folks here on the ground, instead of routing through me to route through Juneau to shoot back up here when you really live 2 miles away. So that's why we encourage everybody to reach out to our operations team.
We fully recognize that the turbine, it's a diversification on the farm, that the primary income on that land and ground is the farm. So we will absolutely work with the landowners and the surrounding landowners.
And with the spring, there's this much window, I just
Until drones take over, then who knows? But
Mr. Jones, you brought up something, I think, last week when you talked briefly about lights.
The lights, I've had a lot of them, some of those out there don't currently have lights on them.
Yep.
And just, if you look around the landscape here at night, it's quite bright.
So, the FAA has the ultimate determination on any structure above 200 feet. A little above 200 feet, you go through the FAA and they are law. This site had its determinations of no hazard, which means there are no aeronautical hazard to any pilots or anything like that. And with the increased blade length, we submitted these sites back to the FAA for review. They issued the same determinations of no hazard. They then asked us to light every turbine. We refused. We did not want to do that. We don't want to put any more lights out there than are required. So we're in the process of working back with the FAA, requesting them to restudy the area. What we've seen on other sites, especially out east, is the FAA came back, restudied it, and actually required less lighting. I'm not going to say that that's what they're going to do here because it is a case-by-case basis, but we've asked the FAA to restudy the area, given that we do not want to increase the number of lights.
Because I know other sites out west, they do have rules against light pollution and whatnot, and those lights only shine up, they don't shine out.
So it is very geographically based. So the FAA takes a good hard look at what's going on in the area, any local or regional airports, any military training routes that may be above the area that are not public, all sorts of things, and then they issue to us what we need to do. It's really a determination on their end, and they dictate back to any structure above 200 feet what that lighting requirement is. We've seen areas where, we've really tried to do some sort of mitigation, and we've submitted those requests to the FAA, and they come back and say, no go for X, Y, and Z.
I know the FAA has approved those lights that only shine up, but the only people that need to see them are the planes that are up.
Sure, absolutely, and like I said.
It looks like Christmas. every night when you look to the south from where I live, and, you know, there's, and by you, and like, you know, there's areas up in North Dakota that those lights are only triggered when they get the radar frequency coming off the plane.
So, and that's another sort of lighting mitigation thing, but what I'd like to remind everybody is the FAA looks at those on a case-by-case basis and makes their determination on each individual wind tower. It's very geographically based and given the routes that are above it, and we have no influence into that realm.
Can you request lighting alternatives to the ones that only shoot up, or is it only dictated by them?
It's dictated by them.
My understanding was they dictated the light, they didn't determine what kind of light you stuck on it. That was up to the carrier.
Oh, no, I mean, it's written on there exactly what light and what color it needs to be, and then deep inside all the schematics for it, exactly what brightness it needs to be, and then the intervals of the pulsation. That is fully carried by the FAA.
Could you forward me the information on that?
Sure. We've actually provided all of our determinations and no hazard into our permitting application as well.
I should probably know this, but are you guys the O'Brien County project that's next year of that too, or not?
O'Brien,
That's
different.
O'Brien.
Mid-American. Okay. That's the one east?
No, south.
I know you guys got one east.
South is that way. You guys are like. South.
East.
Yeah, we need the.
East is behind you.
In comparison, I mean, if you're looking at O'Brien, you know, you've got active airports in Turngar, Paulina, there's turbines, you know, a mile north of Paulina Airport, and, you know, there's some extensive, I did the permit review on O'Brien, I did both projects on O'Brien. There was some extensive conversations with aerial spraying too, and taking off the landings, but everything runs through the FAA, and, you know, the Osceola County's ordinance is set up almost identical to O'Brien County's ordinance now, which mirrors a lot of the ordinances across Northwest Iowa, to be honest with you. But, and typically, the way the ordinance reads is that just the county is going to conform with the FAA requirements, so.
How many airports do I have around here?
Oh, what's that?
How many airports do we have around here?
Harris? None. You gotta go clear over to Okoboji, Spirit Lake Airport in Okoboji, before you get any probably air traffic.
So we really wouldn't need the lights since we don't have them now.
That's why you don't have them on every single tower. I mean, you said that the wind farm over here is bright, but what if every single tower had to be lit up? I'm saying like down O'Brien County's farms, there is a greater majority of those towers. I mean, I don't know if it's every single tower.
I think they're all lit.
And they might, every single one of them might be lit down there, because there's more proximity to airports.
But then you got ones over the east where they burned out, they never replaced them. So I don't know how important they really are.
So, like I said, I can't speak to any other outfit out there. I can say that for Endeavor 1 and 2, like we submitted to the FAA, and the FAA said that they've determined no hazard, and we requested to keep the same lighting plan we have today, which would not cause any new lights, which is also a good thing. So, I think in the years to come, you know, there may be some changes, but unfortunately, we're just hoping to keep the government running at this point and keep the FAA within these determinations and no hazard out. At this rate, they take about 6 months. So we submitted ours back in September of last year, or July of last year, and we got them in December.
And not to make it go longer, but I think another thing, the important thing you had brought up before is decommissioning plan. I don't know if you want to ask.
Yeah, because we didn't follow that one that burned up. That one should have been addressed right away, and it's that, according to what we already had on the books, that for almost 2 years and nothing.
Yeah, that was right as I took the project over is when we were able to get the replacement in. A little bit of that was working to get the clipper out and the GE in, coming up with a technical manual to make sure that it was all done correctly, and then working through the insurance claim on it. And then we had a few items to work out with the landowner and his property. Once we were able to get all that squared away, we were able to come back in and work with Aaron to make sure that the zoning requirements were met. We did get a variance on that site.
You guys took that off the tax roll and took back on now that it's operational?
I could find out for you, I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
County assessor's office should be able to tell you what's on.
I can shoot it.
Do we have an agreement where, not just decommissioning, but that we want you to maintain them operational? If something happens to one, that you get it back up so that we're not seeing them pulled off the tax rolls and you guys.
I have to look back at the decommission language we submitted, and we may have included something like that, that the turbine is down for X amount of days or months or something, an agreement there that, it would, then the decommissioning rules would then take into effect. And the tower
Include in the permitting?
I know
Yeah,
I believe Nolan took a peek at the decommissioning language.
Is that in the road use, is that in, though, a separate agreement?
It's a separate agreement from the road use.
Okay, and it's separate from the permit application?
Yes.
Okay. So, we haven't probably, we went through that process for just that one turbine, but now we're doing the whole thing, so. But you haven't submitted anything, right, regarding a decommissioning plan yet?
No, Kimberly included the decommissioning.
Okay.
Probably in.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
And moreover, landowners have decommissioning language within their agreements as well. They hold us to standards that we meet with each individual landowner in their property. But in any event, this maintenance exercise, and getting the new generators out there, will prevent us needing to use that decommissioning, allow the site to keep operating. But with that, like I said, I'm always open for any more questions. I do understand you folks have a few more items on your agenda. But as always, please feel free to reach out to me directly with any questions. Look forward to meeting with you all again.
Thank you. Is that permitting process?
That turbine is not back on the tax roll. When did you guys put that back into commission?
I can get the exact date for you. Sharon? Yep. Okay. And the assessor's office?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want me to give you guys a quick rundown about the permitting process, what we've gone through to date, where we're at, what we look forward to? Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Steve Hoggard. I'm with Northwest Iowa Planning and Development Commission. Our office is located out of Spencer. We cover a 9-county territory, Northwest Iowa. We're your local regional planning affiliate to help you guys out. So Aaron and Carol reached out to me when this project was kind of getting up and going, and ultimately we've contracted with Osceola County that I'm assisting the county with the permitting review process for this particular project. So where we're at today, right now, what we've ended up with is there's about 4 different processes we're going through simultaneously right now. And I'll start with, where I'll start with to begin with is first of all, to let you all know, if they were doing nothing but coming in and just simply replacing out blades, blade for blade, same length, and replacing out generator for generator, the same size and same scope, there would be no permitting involved. There would be no review process, there would be nothing. That's just simple maintenance. They can do that whenever they want at their will. They don't need any permission to do that. So the only thing that triggered this entire review process and this process and this project and this permitting is ultimately they are adding a few new structures now, not wind turbines, I'll get to that, but what we would call, if you want to use the word improvements or upgrade or whatever you want to call it, but since the blades are being extended, that's what's triggered this permitting review process. So, the existing wind farms themselves, Endeavor 1 and Endeavor 2, they are what we would call a legal existing non-conforming use permitted at this point. That entire wind farm was permitted prior to 2013, 2014, when the new regulations went into place. Since it's already existing farm, we can't retroactively go back and make them move towers. We can't do that. Since they are making improvements, we can implement the new rules in place today, and that's what's triggering the variance, and that's why they're asking for the variance. But there's already a conditional use permit in place for that wind farm. So the first permit we're doing is, we're calling it an amendment to the existing conditional use permit. So that amendment is going through, there's gonna be a public hearing for that amendment. That's going through the Board of Adjustment, and then the Board of Adjustment will make a ruling on that to what, I'm using my words now, what I would call the upgrade or the improvement to the 59 or 60 towers in the wind farm. The second process in place is a variance in and of itself. So the first one is just saying, we recognize that you want to do all these improvements, so we're going to allow you to do the improvements to a conditional use permit. Because wind towers are permitted by conditional use in an ag district, so that's what requires that. The variance comes into play on a more site-specific, turbine by turbine, or tower by tower basis, because not all towers are gonna need a variance. Those towers, where the issue comes into play is on the old siting, if it said you needed to be 1,200 feet from a residence, or the other rule of thumb was 1.5 or 110% setback from a property line or a road right of way. Well, if you had total height, and I'm just throwing out random numbers, but 350 feet, 110% would be 350 would be about 385 feet setback. Well, you increase the blade length by another 30 feet. Now your setback is going to be 400 and some feet instead of 385 feet. So, since they're not moving the location of the tower, that blade length is actually going to encroach a little bit into that 110% original setback. So that's where the variances are coming into play. And NextEra has done, this is what they've submitted so far. This is one of 2 binders I've gotten, but this is the actual permit for the variance and the conditional use. And they've broken it out site by site for all the setbacks and everything. The third permit that comes into play, which just came into play last week, was Aaron and I were notified last week that they're now proposing that there's going to be 3 temporary meteorological towers that are going to go up new. So what these do is these measure wind speed, all kinds of meteorological factors. My understanding in talking with another representative from NextEra, Kimberly, who I've been working with, is she said, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I was told was that these are going to monitor wind speeds, wind generation on the property over the next 1 to 2 years, maybe up to 3 years, to determine if the new blades and the new equipment is gathering more efficiency. So they basically just want to counteract to make sure that the improvements they make are paying off based on the wind speeds and everything. So the 3 Met towers are going up within the perimeter of the existing wind farm, not going outside of the perimeter. Upon talking with Aaron and the county staff, we're looking at that as new construction. So that is going to necessitate a separate new conditional use permit. So that is going to go before the Board of Adjustment for review, to have them issue a new conditional use permit for the 3 Met towers. All 3 of those Met towers are just under 200 feet, so they're not going to be lit. Towers only need to be lit when they're over 200 feet, according to FAA. So I think they're coming in at 195, 198. And if you've seen them, it's a simple lattice tower with guy wires is the ones they're proposing to do. So, and then the fourth one is what we're calling a temporary use permit for the laydown yard. The laydown yard is going to be on the corner of Highway 9 and I forgot the road.
Is it Warbler or something?
Warbler, thank you.
I think it was.
Warbler and Highway 9 on that corner.
Why would you stick it in a high traffic area like that?
Well, I think it's ease of getting semis in and out of the property to drop off equipment, and it's also a storage yard for blade.
It's on the south side,
It's on the south side of Highway 9.
Highway 9.
It's the one that was used originally.
It's the original location of the original Lincoln yard. If you guys remember where that was, this would be 10, 11 years ago. Same property owner.
Hayes put that cafe in?
What's that?
Is that where Dylan Hayes put that?
I think it's close to it. I think it's really close to where that cafe is, that temporary cafe. Yeah.
On the south side or the?
South side, Highway 9.
So, that yard, I think, is somewhere in the ballpark of 15 acres, give or take. And, I've actually already reviewed that permit, and I've made a recommendation, to Aaron's office, to go ahead and authorize that, because from
How
what
long
I.
is that gonna be active for?
That's gonna be active during the duration of the project. After completion of the project, the site will be remediated back to the existing condition it is now, which is either agricultural or pasture, whatever it's being used for now.
The amount of lake traffic on it, I just, it's like a recipe for disaster.
It's not gonna be a permanent, lay down yard, so.
It's really an area for our construction office.
What's the name of the, landowner there?
Hellinga.
Clarence.
Yeah, Clarence, yep.
Yeah.
So it's just an area for us to bring in,
Do some job site trailers.
yes, 3 or 4 trailers, and we submitted the site plan with the proposed location of those, to make sure that they conform with setbacks from roads and right of ways and such.
Right. So it's gonna be a temporary use area, it's gonna be fenced in, it'll be a secure site. All the fencing will be removed, all the trailers will be removed, like I said, it's gonna be remediated back to its original condition upon completion of the project. So, that temporary use permit, like I said, I've already looked at that, reviewed that, I've sent that to Aaron's office. My recommendation is to approve that, they can go ahead and start construction on prepping that site for that laydown yard and start doing what they need to, in anticipation of the project. As far as the variance and the 2 conditional use permits, they do have to go through a legal process through the Board of Adjustment. So they are gonna necessitate, public hearing notices in the newspapers. They are necessitating, notifications to all affected property owners from the project area, in accordance with the statutes identified in the ordinance. And, then we're gonna hold a meeting. Tentatively, right now, that meeting is being planned for Monday, March 4th, is what we're looking at. I don't have a time, I can work out a time, with Aaron, for when they typically hold those.
You say Monday or is it Tuesday?
I'm sorry, Tuesday the 5th.
Yeah, I think that's what we're tentatively
That's what
planning.
we talked about, I'm sorry, I apologize. It's Tuesday the 5th, not Monday the 4th.
Either one could work, but that's what we're.
No,
planning on, yeah.
that's what I talked to Kimberly about.
Yeah,
Tuesday the
yeah.
5th.
Yep.
So,
That would be the best.
that's what we're looking at. So the public notices for the newspapers will be going in the paper actually next week, next Wednesday. Those notices will be on the papers. Notifications to property owners will be going out. I would encourage all of you, if you have people that are asking about the project or have any issues, I would encourage you to convey to them that they need to go to that meeting. Because, the board is the decision-making authority in this particular process, this zoning process. So it will go before the Board of Adjustment, they will make a final rule on those conditional uses and variances. After that, if anybody has issue with that, in accordance with state law, they cannot appeal it to you guys as a Board of Supervisors. An appeal to the Board of Adjustment would go to district court. And under state law, they have 30 days. If they don't make any action within 30 days, it's a moot point at that time. So, and that's just kind of the legal process that we're looking at going through over the next, month. So.
My understanding is that there's an agenda too, for the board on the 26th, that some landowners are gonna come in to talk about the wind farm too. So this will take, the actual hearing will take place a week later, because they were looking at having it around that same time, but we pushed it back intentionally.
Right.
To make sure there's opportunity for anything to be discussed too.
And I plan on attending that meeting as well, I'll make myself available to any questions.
and I will plan to be here on the 26th as well, so. But, and people can come here and they can talk to you guys about the project and they can voice their concerns to you and everything else. I just don't want a public perception to be out there that, and I'm not relegating any of your authority, but I don't want the public perception out there that this permitting process is going through the supervisors. Everything is gonna be going through the Osceola County Board of Adjustment. So, and if the landowners have issues with it, they need to go to that meeting. So
obviously, if you have questions about that, you should let your constituents know that process, so that they get in contact with the correct people. Or if you want to contact the Board of Adjustment on their behalf, that probably would be fine as well.
Yeah. So, and my whole part in this process is basically, I mean, you know, NextEra, they're doing their part. This is the permit that they submitted. So my job is, I'm vetting this permit. I'm going through and doing the review on behalf of the county. I'm gonna make up a report of my recommendations, my comments to the Board of Adjustment members. The Board of Adjustment members will get all the information. I'd like to think they would read this page to page. I'm not guaranteeing it, but that's why the county hired me also. So I will be at that Board of Adjustment meeting. I'll be able to answer questions they might have. I'm gonna take, like I said, I'm gonna prepare a report for the board members that hopefully I can take this permit and simplify it down into maybe a 2, 3, 4-page report, that's very understandable of what we're actually talking about. So, and then like I said, we'll go through the meeting and see what happens.
And to add to Steve's point there, those third-party consultants that we talked about, they'll be in attendance as well as some engineering construction folks, so that if any really specific questions or scientific questions are raised, the subject matter expert can speak to that directly.
Right. I think the other important thing to remember too, which I'll convey to the Board of Adjustment, is that this is not a new wind farm. So we're not playing by the same rules as permitting a new wind farm. This is still an existing wind farm that was permitted back in the mid-2000s, and we're simply talking about making upgrades. So there's no new turbines going in, there's no new sites outside of the 3 Met towers, and then the 3 Met towers are going to be permitted separately. But at the same time, we're going through a public process where we do want to make sure that everybody's comments are heard. But it's important that that be known, so.
So like you said, if we weren't changing the blade length on it, we wouldn't even be having this discussion anyway.
Exactly. It really comes down to that almost minute of a detail, because if they were doing exact replacement for replacement of nacelle, which they are really doing an exact replacement for the generator. I mean, they're going 2.5 megawatt generating to 2.5 megawatt generating. It's really just comes down to the blade length. If they were coming in with new blade lengths that were exact same size as what's on there right now, we wouldn't even be here.
Well, then I don't think anybody would have any issue with it whatsoever.
It wouldn't even be a point, yeah, because at that point, it's 100% maintenance, and that's not permitted. So
what is Plan B? Review. If the Board of Adjustment does not approve the variance, or does not approve the additional use, I'm guessing you would appeal.
Honestly, I haven't planned for a Plan B. I mean, I think that the landowners we have signed up, I think there's a lot of people that are very excited to keep this project operating. And I think that we're well prepared to answer some of the questions that some folks have and do what we can for the folks that weren't addressed the first time. I would like to think that we're going to do everything we can to keep this moving in the right direction. That being said, though, at some point the site does become uneconomical.
Does GE make a blade comparable to what's on there?
I would have to look into it. I'm sure at some point, yes, but with the efficiency, we would lose the efficiency increase in the blades, and then that would ultimately affect the price to the customer, and at some point the customer is going to say it's not economical for them either. That's all speculation. I don't even like to think about that day coming. I'd like to think that we can find middle ground and we can like I said, we can keep this project operating and generating benefits to not only, landowners, but to the county as well.
I think some of the landowners, and I know we are very excited to get rid of the Clipper equipment and replace it with brand new material. That's gonna allow us to protect a lot longer and better.
Are you not quite sure though that these longer blades will be more efficient? Is that the reason for putting up the towers?
So all of it's all modeling at this point, the efficiency, it's all done on a computer basis, and, this is just the measuring activity afterwards to really get the hard data. It's like verification. We're very confident in our computer models, but at the end of the day, the scientists wanna know the numbers, they wanna measure it, so.
And I think for comparison, I haven't, I don't know if they've done the upgrades on the Dickinson County farm yet or not, or if those are some of the shorter blades yet. I think the Dickinson County farms, over there by Lake Park and that, were similar blade lengths to what you guys have. But I do know if you've been down on Highway 18 recently, if you've seen the new, windmills going up, by Everly, north of Everly and south of Everly down to Royal in, Clay County and southern Dickinson, those are all the new ones. Those will be same size as what these guys are looking at. So, and just for comparison, I mean, you look at them and, I don't know. I'm not trying to minimize it, but from my perspective, I'm not a wind energy technician, but at that size, a big windmill's a big windmill.
Well, Bryan County said the longer ones too, don't they?
Yeah, I think they do. Especially the newer farm, north, the north side is the newer farm, everything along Highway 18 and north of 18, even over by Sanborn, that was their phase 2. The phase 1 is more down by Paulina, Primgar.
They look longer.
Area. Yeah, I think phase 2 was for sure, so.
Further, gentlemen?
I'd like to just say thank you again for your time, look forward to coming back in a few weeks, and answering any more questions, as always, just reach out with any questions. Thank you.
Seems like there's quite a few left.
I've never had a lot of good luck on that.
Really?
Oh, yes, yes, sir.
I'm sure we're too late in the process, I guess I'm just there.
Always have to do that, everything they know is we handle it.
Operations and on see.
I don't think it's too late in the process.
I would certainly like to see that,
Yeah.
I got just my days tomorrow, to be honest with you, so I'm not sure. I don't know why they skipped it, it wasn't what their proposal was. I'll forward that to Aaron. Right, and that's kind of what we're talking about. Yeah. Interim here. But I got a meeting like that, to me, it would be a simple, just, development, maybe, might be a good idea for them to have a county church. It doesn't help, right? It wouldn't be a bad idea.
I just wanted to leave a few of these here for you folks as well, make sure you've got my contact information. I continue up to all time, but, please feel free to reach out with any questions, and, love to keep in contact with everybody.
And I agree with you, that my father-in-law owns a car that it's idle, or it's, broken.
The way down there?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Ellinger?
Can't step in.
Wonderful man. We, yeah,
I don't know who you've been talking to, Fred or?
Fred.
Fire too, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've been talking with Fred. He came out to our landowner dinner last week, and, got to meet him and his lovely wife, and we had a shared meal. It was really great, and I actually asked them to attend our, Board of Adjustments meeting. Speak to a little bit of the relationship.
Just Thursday or next?
All you folks get back to your meeting. It was a very nice meeting, everybody. Thank you again.
Like the 21st.
Where is the Board of Adjustments meeting?
I'm not sure.
Here?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it varies, by company to company. We're looking at.
Usually, well, they have one like during the noon hour or one at 4 o'clock usually.
But that'll vary a little bit between.
You let us know.
Some will pay more for the service area, and some pay less.
Yeah, that's just. Hey, just about that.
We won't say nothing.
Oh, yeah, we're talking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, luckily we're in a situation today where folks signed the original contract.
I think that's one of the most, now the company's being turned out to build. So I don't know who the alternative are.
Yes, so we have a work, we learned,
Yeah, I got one over Compass Point, but I also got another one.
And then do you have an alternate for
I got another one. I don't think we do.
I don't think we do.
Because you and I both
okay,
feel.
thanks again, appreciate it. Take care.
Okay, I gotta ask you a really dumb question.
I got a dumb answer.
Northwest Iowa Regional Planning and Development, what is the difference between that and Northwest Iowa Development? I have that meeting tomorrow.
We deal, I'm not gonna Steve.
Yeah.
We deal mainly with the engineer side,
Oh, okay.
with roads,
And we deal with, like, microeconomic.
yeah, and we don't. Well, micros are,
He's on that too.
yeah, but ours is mainly with the engineers, the money for roads,
Okay.
like with Steve, Valvani with Job Services, she's on the road.
I got 2 meetings, I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if I have an alternate to either one.
We got, well, what tomorrow night too?
Yeah, I got 2. This is my busy week.
When did that, when did they see that Board of Adjustment meeting was? Check this.
March 5th is when it is.
Is that an evening meeting then, or?
But Jason, actually,
I don't think he's been there.
Compass
Usually,
Point alternate.
they have one at 4 or something like during noon hours.
Send him down the road.
I have a conflict from on the regional mental health board.
So what do you guys do when you got 2 meetings scheduled both at the same time? Just, okay?
Just pick which one you think is more important.
Which one is short?
But, yeah. Closer to.
Well, if you're not gonna go to Compass Point, I better. I'll just show up to Northwest Iowa.
You seen the agenda, right, for Compass Point?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of.
I'll go down and talk to, what's our new economic.
What is it, you at Compass Point and what?
Stephanie, Northwest Iowa Development. That's tomorrow in Sheldon at 10 o'clock.
I just want to.
I've missed a couple.
Right away.
I've missed a couple of those, but. I'll go down and see if Stephanie's gonna go and she can just get the information and talk to her. I think Compass One is probably a little more important as far as I'm concerned.
If I go down and visit with their friend and appeal it to me.
And there's not an alternate for me for that.
That's the one I always get about the emails about updated meeting canceled or this, I'm always confused by that, there must be some Google thing that it automatically sends if it always canceled. Review of the fiscal year 1920 budgets, gentlemen.
That update and reminders of all the changes that were made. And then I, increased Compass Point to 4,500. And I ran a new, budget fund balance, so you guys knew what the fund balance were after I made the change. That's in right in front of the book, getting in fund balances.
So last year we just had Compass Point this, one time, or how do you pay that?
We, usually they send us a bill, we pay them quarterly, like $250 every quarter, is how we normally have paid them. Oh, I gave you those last ones, those haven't changed at all, haven't changed any of that.
We got brought this up last time, the only one I was concerned about was the conservation. It was up 86,000 or something. Or do you wanna wait till, I have a meeting tonight, and I'll ask them. Our question was whether they could put that, toilet into the land acquisition.
The shop can.
I really don't see why it couldn't.
I think it can, but I guess I'm,
Yeah.
we have to talk about it tonight. Well, I would agree, that was my,
The postage stamp size piece of dirt there next to the highway, and you're just a short drive from the truck stop. It's not like the one over on Highway 9 by Cheaton, where we have no truck stop or no gas station.
Well, I don't know, I've seen time for, you don't wanna wait another 2 minutes.
That one by Cheaton's full all the time.
It is.
Because there is no gas station, no truck stop, no place to use on that.
I'll discuss that.
But in a way, I can understand why they don't want concrete, want to do a lot less maintenance.
I know that one, Spidey's Farmers, I've been, what, 40 years now?
But I don't know what they've stuck into it all the time either. I don't know yet. I'm just saying, I can understand why they want to go with concrete.
Well, I understand it, one, it gets used a lot, but I don't understand it there, on that particular corner. And they always thought that they want to say, that they can haul that truck, they can use the dump truck, to pull the trailer, to haul that tractor, and everything else, so I'm like, well, you need a heavy duty truck, then it's something that bad, they, something
think we put 300,000 in the budget.
We got 230 in courthouse, kept it the same as this year.
But didn't we do that 300,000 that were spent on the top point, and we just leave that same number in?
Yeah, there was 230,500, I kept it the same, what you amended to, we kept it the same for next year.
Okay. I have 300 in there for some reason.
So we can change it just, and you had 230,500, that's what we amended it to this year.
Paper out, before I got to show it.
That was 21,000.
Steve out, was interested in considering the windows again, and they expressed a willingness or the ability to do maybe a floor or two at a time rather than all at once, but yes, if we could maybe make a presentation or discuss it with the board at some point, and he understands the need to go to bids and things like that, he's just encouraging to make sure we have a clear set of bid specs, so that when the bids come in, you're comparing apples to apples.
Whose idea was that, you know, maybe split it over 2 years, like if they did it in May and June, and then again in July and August or something like that? I thought that was a pretty good idea.
I think I mentioned that to him over the.
I thought that was a pretty good idea, because that way, they
He
could
just
just.
sounded quite accommodating, having worked with counties and school districts in the past, understood.
Because then that way we could get it done and not have it all in one shot.
Anything this year yet possible that we're doing a budget amendment, so do we, I'm not for sure how much is in courthouse right now, we need to up that a little bit when we do the budget.
I doubt if we can get started on it this year, okay, before July 1st anyway.
We are thinking into the next summer.
Okay, that's fine, I just wanted to make sure we didn't.
What was that?
The Nolan's request for added.
You know, I don't care how you look at it, everybody thinks their job's
That's right.
the most important.
That's another thing, I agree.
And I'm not saying their job's not important, don't get me wrong.
I'm not either, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Everybody. Yeah, they are, I don't care who it is.
that's why they open the can of worms up, and then it's just,
I would say
it
it's
needs to come back out.
yeah, I think that should be dropped down to 2.4 something.
I got some additional information, I could see an increase, but I would go with the full 5,000.
I just have a hard time putting one above the other one.
Yep.
That's just my thoughts.
You're not comparing similar positions. That's where I'm, what's your job look like outside the courthouse? What do other people do or get similar?
You could make that argument for every office in here.
But I
And
know,
I think we should, we need to pay them what is a fair rate, not just, well, they didn't get that last year, so they shouldn't.
I know I visited with some other attorneys, and, they thought it was a very fair wage, what she was getting.
I asked around over there, O'Brien too, and they thought that that was a very fair, all things considered.
Well, could you get them to send that and comparatively then to what they think their office staff is doing, that would be comparable?
I know the one I talked to, he told me that's more than they pay theirs.
Do they only have one? We've got one doing.
All the civil practitioners in Brazil got one, and they're all making less than that.
But no, there's a good argument on both sides, I'm not saying that, but.
When we had that discussion downstairs, we went with a one-year term deal, and we backed out of that one, I don't think we can.
No, she's still getting paid that.
For 1,200. Yeah, and that probably was a mistake on our part, we can't go back, I don't want to do it again.
Well, that's because she was doing the zoning job that was supposed to have been Aaron's, but still not Aaron's.
I think we need to pull it.
But the part that gets me is, and I'm glad Aaron gave us this, it's not just the wage they're getting, you gotta look over at the total benefit package. They're making a lot of money.
Yeah, they are. And you gotta remember the cost of living
Yeah.
here versus at the lakes. You couldn't afford to buy that house over at the lakes.
But like at a $23.57 an hour job, ends up to be an $80,000 a year wage.
Yep.
By the time you figure the benefit.
They're in a company out there that's got that kind of.
That, you know, and it never really hit me until the other day when he handed this out. Because, you know, I knew the wages were good, the benefits were good.
You gotta figure in IFRS and all the rest of that stuff that is available in the private sector as well. Everyone else has got a 401k.
And I guarantee you, I've never made $80,000 a year. I'm not working for somebody.
So do we want, or should we adjust that?
I'd like to see it go back to the
2.47.
Can't do that.
Yeah, my quote says, oops, Mincy.
Oh. I would think so. What do you think, Jason?
Whether it was a mistake or not, I think we said it, and I can see increasing it similar to the last time, or maybe even half of what he asked, but I need to look through the email he provided me in response when asking about it a little more, and just weigh that out a little bit, but
You're over again, or just?
I think this is just
And I'm not saying that he's not doing a good job.
I'm not saying any of this, anybody listen to it, I just don't think it's, I don't think we can open that can of worms, that's my opinion.
legal open up secondary roads, everybody else.
And that,
I was thinking about this, like on secondary roads too. Just say it was we went to 3% for easy pay. In 3 years, that's 9%. On a $50,000 wage, you know, can we sustain that long term? You know?
No.
I'm not following 3 years becoming, or 3% become 9%.
if you did that 3 years.
If you do 3 year rows, it's 9%.
And not only does the wage go up 9%, does the 9% figures out the wages.
I'm not against people making money.
I'm not even,
I don't know if that's sustainable.
because I know what the budget looked like, well, when Phil and I came on board, I know what the budget looked like, and it sucked.
It was a little lean.
A little
I don't
bit.
go away that won't help. I don't go away that won't help.
No.
I'm not, back to the windmills, I'm not against windmills either, but we have to keep everything,
Yeah.
you know, we gotta look at everybody's, you know.
And that's what I asked him out there, I said, because I know there for a while, the people north of Harris, they were on a percentage of what it produced. They got, come on the short end of the stick, because they were big time. Yeah. And it wasn't cost them anything, so they didn't go fix them right away.
Nope.
And that's why I asked him now, he says, no, all contracts they're renewing, everybody's gonna be the same. And that was good, and they're paying by the year, not by output.
I've never heard of anybody being able to get this thing turned out to spray, because I know guys just, they won't go anywhere near them.
No. No, I won't either. But that's why I want to give Bob those cards.
I don't know how long it takes to get them to shut it down, but.
Question.
Well, Lynn County, you could, if you got hold of these people right here, they could do it right away.
If I was a landowner, I'd put that into my contract just to make sure.
And as far as secondary road, thinking about that 3.5%, I just wonder if they figured when they got away with the union, if they could negotiate every year on their own. That's kind of the impression I get. Because every year since they've got rid of the union, they've come up and tried to negotiate their own. I just kinda wonder if that's what they figured they could do. I don't know.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do it that way.
Yeah,
That's what Aaron's for.
but to me, a 2.4% raise, I don't think that's bad raise.
No. There's a lot of folks not getting any raises this year.
Last year, Lang County didn't get a raise. I haven't talked to them yet this year to see what they're doing. I'm sure they're gonna have to do something this year. Cause I know they caught a ration of crap last year.
They got them back in one money.
But I think that's specified more for roads, bridges. It's specified, I think, what that can go for.
It's a tip, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tip, so they can use it for bridges and roads and whatever. They still get a percentage of that though. They know they, like the cities and that schools, county gets a percentage of that.
Oh, the county gets percentage, but I think it's for the, specified what they can use it for. And wages, I don't think is one of them.
I did notice in that handout that Aaron had too, that there's a lot of counties that don't do 100% on a single policy.
Yeah. I think that's what I was looking at is, okay, so we're out here on the single, not as much on the family. Kind of,
I think it all even now. And I looked at the stuff, a lot of those with $1,000 deductibles versus 500.
secondary road 500 or 750.
500.
Or they're 11,000, or 5,000,
Yeah.
10,000 self-insured, yeah. Sheriff's office is the only one on the 750. All the time, and then there's a few up here that have the 11E, but they self-insure down to 750, and there's 500.
This is good as well.
Well, I will talk to conservation tonight about that.
Okay.
Only other one I can think of is little ones. I thought so, leave it at 2.47. Guess I'm not here to make any friends tonight.
We don't. Well, you don't make friends up here. Don't increase your business either. Don't increase your business either. Just the two last two that came on into.
What was that?
That's how that works.
What was it? I put it in my box.
Sure.
Yeah.
The last two that came on board have to go to it.
She presented at our meeting, we agreed to the date, I think, she should be in attendance, but,
Well, I know one that's not gonna be.
I'm planning on going.
Let me know what you find out.
Okay.
Cause I've had the quick version in Des Moines. And they told me we just can't live without it.
Oh, I'm sure that's what it'll say.
And it is interesting. I'll be the first to admit that it is interesting to do. And I think it'll be good.
I tell you, Human Solutions was here last week. We do have the options of scanning our minutes in to their system instead of doing a whole other system. And that it kind of works the same way. You can type in a name like Solutions, and all the time that it references Solutions, it comes up on Solutions side. That might be a cheaper way for us, we'll still have to have somebody probably come in and scan them into Solutions systems. And then from there on, after that, then we could scan them in ourselves, in-house, instead of having a company come and do it. That might be an option for us at a cheaper
we did
rate.
not include the,
We did include for that,
including it.
yeah, but we might be able to find just cheaper resources, I guess, to do it through Solutions instead of through another company. Unless
It
it's,
makes sense to leave it in the budget, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we have to go with our
Right.
research.
right. And if you say you might have to have somebody, if they would just be willing to scan it
and be compatible to Solutions program, we can just do it through Solutions. Another less thing to,
Okay, just specify that when you hire somebody.
yeah, we would have to, there would have to be, you know, compatible. And Allison was like, just have them give us a call and we'll tell them what we need to make it compatible to Solutions, and so. Because of this other company, I think it's gonna be done like updates like every 6 months or once a year, but if we could do it through Solutions, we could scan in the minutes every month or, you know, after every meeting if they're approved, so that would be.
Better deal.
Yeah.
So, that was news, I was like, oh, that's kind of a good deal for us, I thought. We'll look into that, so if that's okay with you.
I tend to agree with your thoughts, Jerry.
What's that?
I agree with your thoughts with Mitzi and conservation.
Just what I'm thinking, so I'm not, just one more.
Thank you. So let us know when we find out on the toilet next meeting.
Yep.
Which is next Tuesday.
Yep.
That has to be the finalized, but I have to have it to the paper, the budget, or the budget thing has to be the paper on the 22nd, yeah.
We need to vote on
Do we have to vote on that or not, to pull that toilet out and put it into the?
21,000.
If it's not reducing the budget, we can move it from line to line, I think, can't we? Or if it's not increasing the budget,
You just reduce it.
we
Yeah.
can do it.
So then that, when we
As
see.
far as publishing,
If we can make that decision, can't we? To move it. I don't know why not, can't we?
not if it doesn't qualify for land acquisition funds. We can move it, but if
We might be
it's
better off.
legally not appropriate to do it, then we shouldn't.
We might be better off to leave it this way and then move it after. Can we do that?
I would think so, but I would just,
Just to know how much land acquisition, that's where that keeps it up.
Yep.
Do you want me to give them a call and see?
Because you can use that for maintenance and replacing that toilet would be maintenance.
what were we looking at, or what are they bringing in for rent and what they're renting out there? On the old property. Technically, we receive the rent, right? And we.
Yeah, we have 40,000 of the front.
We indicated to them that we would give it land acquisition, but if we're not required to do that, that would be a way to, rather than it going into land acquisition and being restricted, we would say, no, let's take it out of there. That might be a better approach than.
Okay, that would work.
Yeah, but if it can come out of land acquisition, I'm not I don't have a problem with just using land acquisition and then the rent going into there, but. Can you follow that, maybe bring that up tonight and just see if that would be.
Okay.
Would you be able to just get us a list of what you can spend out of land acquisition?
Yeah, that'd probably be
Because
good.
there should be a list of something somewhere, and I've read it once, I don't know where I read it, but it's probably somewhere buried in the code.
So you're saying we'll just keep that 40,
If they're making.
difference, whatever that
Yeah, right,
is.
if it's $40,000 that's being paid in rent,
Yep.
rather than putting 40,000 into land acquisition, we put the 20.
Sure, okay.
The balance of whatever the.
And the other question would be,
cost.
if the kid be taken out of it.
Yeah.
That's probably.
It'd be probably cleaner and easier if it can come out of land acquisition,
Yeah.
just to pass the rent into there and use that, but.
Okay.
I'd be in favor of you sharing that
Makes
tonight
sense.
and trying to
Yep.
take that approach.
Yep, that makes sense to me.
Then we'll finalize it on Tuesday.
So then technically it could stay in the line that it is, we just use that rent into this line to
Then we
support
would have
that.
to change the revenue then, right?
Yes.
Because it's going into land acquisition, so it would have to go back, it would have to go into general safety.
Yeah, we have to take the expenses, not the, yeah.
Is that something you need to know right away, or do you need to know that just by Tuesday?
Tuesday's when I can do most, I can get most of it ready. Okay. So, because right now we have land of 42,000 going into general basic, does that
Yeah,
include?
that's about right.
Does that include CISO
That includes
That's
probably.
his rent then?
That's probably all our,
Everything.
Everything, cause
all
last
our-
year was like 10,000 and then he upped it to 42,000 for,
Yeah.
and that's in general basic, that's going into.
Yep.
Cause he had rent out of land acquisition, he took that out of there.
Cause there was some rent money going into land acquisition, that was supposed to go in there. Cause we didn't have an agreement, and no one had approved it, so then. The only written agreement for anything was for revenue, that was the land acquisition, so we never had it.
Revenue. And conservation. The first page.
Well, they don't get paid rent till March first, so they won't have that rent money yet off books anyway. So that wouldn't be in this budget.
But, yeah, that goes in, general basic anyway.
Yeah, it goes in, yeah.
Just declare so much.
Cause the leases would have been able to renew it till after the
If you
first.
have to
Land
have it,
acquisition,
I
right?
think, unless he changes it. We don't
Or
really
the
do
land
that.
there hasn't been any money paid.
Land acquisition.
Oh, I know that. March first
I
is
mean,
on.
it goes into general basic fund, but on the forms, land
I just
acquisition
done them all up
in
front.
general basic column. Otherwise,
That's rather than splitting it out, if you split it out, and they can't pay the second half, you're behind the bank waiting to see if you get your money.
I think part of the reason was so we kind of have a little bit of crap to pay, you know what I'm saying, and just staying crap to pay.
And that does make sense.
You know, so you got maybe the soybean crop to pay the.
But they're not practical side of that.
No, I understand.
If they don't have it,
Yep.
you're behind the bank.
I think we're in good shape, these guys. Brian, Mark spread that, Dave, your department, and for mine, so.
I think you're probably setting pretty good.
So just those two items on Monday, Tuesday.
that's really all we want, anything else on the agenda, as of yet.
So that's why I'm like,
There'll be a whole
Installation.
do you have copier contracts with like multiple vendors, or you guys all under one?
Through office. One source or one for office element, or.
There'd be council on here, I see AMD Business Solutions.
That's all, a lot of this was, the sheriff's office,
And the leads are copier stuff.
AD,
And then council also does copier.
yeah.
But I was on that committee, and the AMD had the best contract at that time.
So do we still have a contract with council over there then too, because I see they're both on this.
Is it under Department 5? Out of the state, out of,
Sheriff's Department.
yep.
Secure benefits, oh, sorry, you're not there yet.
Okay. That's right here.
That's a separate claim for what Kingston retains for their oversight.
We don't ever pay Kingston, we always just pay secure benefits.
Because they have certain
benefits $450 per employee. We never take these.
Okay.
That council, that's our copier. The courthouse, it used to be office elements or office supply, now it's council, so we pay our maintenance too.
Does the county attorney have that too? Oh, the sheriff. It's under the
Yeah,
sheriff. It's under
yeah,
the sheriff.
the AD is the sheriff's office.
The council is too.
That's why I was wondering, why both of them were there, if they were contracted, it was just.
So the
Must have
sheriff,
two.
A and B and council.
Okay, yeah, they have. Yeah, they must have two, they have two copies over there. I'm not for sure why. So general basic pays half, and then public safety pays half on both A and B and the council.
What's cheaper? One company or both?
That's, because your service contract usually covers all that stuff anyway, so I don't know why you have a second vendor.
We usually have to pay per we pay copy charge per copier, so.
Like this, office supplies, meals and hotels, which one gives you which? Like $689 or
She has it all, office supplies was $44.70,
Okay.
and then his mileage was $190.40. And then meals and hotels was $447.89. Yeah, I know, she put it in the appendix. You only do that once a month.
I think they are.
I know, I forgot to put it on my policy.
I'm just thinking,
What ones in the county?
both,
$14.99.
how cheap in May City or cheap in Mountain.
I was trying to think. I'm pretty sure some started in Pima County, and I'm trying to think where.
Well, you see trucks around, but I'm just saying, I don't think they have they're not so cheap, but an actual location. Location is only that. I just, not, it's a big deal.
I just like to make, keeps go up in line on the prices.
Could be.
Are you gonna contact Michelle? You see when she can start?
I think she's gonna start tonight.
Or is she?
Yeah. After you guys approved it, she's gonna start at 4:30 tonight.
And $14.99 is the Boswell Water Service.
I'll make a motion to pay that.
Second.
Motion by Mike, support from Lynn, to pay claim 1499 to Roslyn Water Service. All those abstaining, all those in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Abstain.
That doesn't mean a lot of money out these things.
Well, I'm thinking it was less quick things.
Oh, yeah, that too.
I'll make a motion to rest the claims too.
Next motion to approve the remaining claims. Mr. Brewer offers support. Further comments or discussion? All those in favor, signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Is there anything in the employee handbook that says how many days vacation you can take in a track? How many vacation days you can take at a time?
I don't think so. I don't really remember seeing it.
Cause we got that, you know, Aaron can't take more than 2 weeks in a row, but then you got someone in the office gone for a month.
This second or third year she's done. And I don't blame her, that's their business if they can go without her, but I think what Aaron should do is get somebody else in there.
That's what I told him. Because all this stuff, like that 2080 agreement, all the rest of this stuff that's not done, stuff that,
That's the 2080 agreement to me could be very simple. It's just follow the states and be done with it.
yep, I thought it was already done.
I did too.
Cause if we talked about it a year and a half.
And then I asked him again, I think it was in November, December last year.
But if you're gonna have somebody gone for a month, you gotta have, somebody should be coming in to answer the phone to something. Cause when both of them have to go out now, there's nobody down there.
Well, how many more years is Cheryl gonna work? She's eligible to retire now, isn't she? She's gonna be pretty darn close.
Yeah, she's training Roger to do claims and payroll and stuff, so he does that.
But even if she works 3-4 more years, I don't care. It'd be nice to have somebody in there that can take over. That's just my thought on it.
And that's what, that last time she was down, I got a bunch of calls from people that went down to the engineer's office, they couldn't get anybody to answer the phone because they were both out. If Roger is sick or somebody, then we always got Aaron left. And if he's gotta go out to local locality, you have nobody down there.
And I don't blame Carol for taking a month off. If she's got time that she can take.
But he needs to bring somebody in part-time, either go through the temp agency, just bring somebody in to answer the phone for a month. Rather than having it just not staffed, period. Because it's hard to justify your help when you can be gone there. Well, something's not getting done.
Yeah, I'm just,
I think it'd be tough sledding for anybody to be out of any offices for a month. Unless it was, you know, you would bring someone in to help out. He's gotta bring somebody in some sort of fashion.
girls were getting out of here for a month when it's cold out. Matter of fact, I'm kind of jealous.
I like to be gone during the winter months.
I know I am jealous.
I don't have any today information to report.
I'm just looking at this time chart for earning. So, it's got overtime hours, snow days, but how do you know how many?
He doesn't have that listed hours.
Well, it's got 4, but it says regular hours there, right? Maybe, I'm not sure. What does he normally put in a day then?
It depends, you know, normally 8 hours, but if it's snow and then it's
Is he
more.
by the hour then?
It's by the hour.
And I see him down there pretty early in the morning, pretty late at night too, when it snows and.
We just, I didn't put there, maybe you can make 2 cents there, I don't know.
I think some of that time he spent like out in the front, keeping regulars where people walk.
There's probably an easy way to follow it, I can't.
So, were those shortened days, then I'm guessing, because those aren't overtime hours, those are regular hours, right?
Well, that's what it says, that's why, that's where I was confused.
Because vacation time wouldn't allow you to gain any overtime in that time period anyway.
He normally doesn't put any overtime in, we just kind of have to figure out from last payroll to the current payroll, how much is worked in that week, and if it's over 40, then we have to pay him overtime. Does that make sense?
Vacation,
Or do you just make it come out the other way?
Well, right,
Or do you just make it come out 40 hour a week, I don't know.
when he's on, you know, vacation, then he's gone, so this is, he won't be overtime. Because he was gone for 10 days.
But Jason, how did that, meeting go last Wednesday
Which means,
at the hospital for suicide prevention?
Good, there's some efforts to try to get a little more
Stuff done?
more steps towards, I'm trying to remember the name of it, kind of a zero suicide approach thing, there's a project that is developed for focus on suicide, and we're gonna try to model what Palo Alto has done, and what's different. Exactly the same, but kind of learn from their steps. They did similar to a real life, not a walk, but they did luminary and things like that.
But just to bring awareness.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, and I never did find that out when I was chair those 2 years. How much money does that group actually have to work with? Because I don't know where they spend it.
Which group? I don't think there's really any money. I think it's just
I thought they got a,
collaboration of interested parties to try to.
I thought they got a grant.
Suicide prevention or mental health prevention.
I think there was some type of, I thought there was some type of grant. I know when I was on there, I couldn't even figure out where they spent it.
I'm not aware of the funding source.
Anybody got anything else? I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
I'll support that.
Motion from Mr. Jones, support from Mr. Numbers to adjourn. All those in favor signify with aye. Those opposed, same sign.
No meeting this afternoon?
No, that's what's going.
What has been rescheduled?
What time and where is that one tomorrow morning?